Welcome back to another episode of the Ministry of Truth. I am your number one host on this show. Good morning. Oh my God, what's going on? Hold on. Why is chat not working? If I disappear, it'll be for less than 3 seconds. And we're back. Oh God, what's going on right now? Oh no. What the fuck? Y'all see that crazy shit? Who is that old guy? What the fuck is really going on? Huh. No chat today. No chat today, apparently, because it doesn't want me to have a chat. Communist motherfucking Chinese people. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that totally should not have come up like that. Let's see. I don't know. That's really odd. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, got a continuation on what we started 2 days ago, and the final 3 episodes, as well as, a little bit of newer stuff. Not really newer stuff, because one of them is from like 2022. But I'm going to try to abstain right now from the current situations going on in our media, because our media is full of shit and they're peddling misinformation. And actually, we're going to get into one of those things about them peddling some information that kind of pissed me off. But it doesn't really matter how I feel, because, well, I'm here for you. And while we're here for you, this is here for you, Bat Mom. Orale. Throwback for some humor. You're good, Southwest. What up, Carl? Happy New Year's, brother. There we go. Fixed it. Oh, that's why. I thought this was funny. This is coming on January 21st.
If you can. Where were you born, man?
Huh? Where was I born?
That's right, I said, where were you born?
Arizona.
Hey, are you one of those dudes that do horoscopes, man? Hey, I'm a Cancer with a bad moon.
Right here, El Fago, watch my lips. Where were you born?
Boy.
I was born in East LA, man. I was born in East LA.
Oh, yeah, you're born in East LA. Well, let's see your green card, huh?
Green card? I'm from East LA.
All right, well, then who's president of the United States?
Oh, that's easy, man. That guy that used to be on Death Valley days, John Wayne.
All right, let's go. Come on.
Next thing I know, I'm in a foreign land. People talking so fast I couldn't understand. There was nobody there to lend a helping hand. I was cold, it was dark. Where is a burger stand? I want to go back to East LA. I wish I was back in East LA. I don't belong here in downtown TJ.
Well, no more born in East LA, cause YouTube doesn't want me to play it. Wow, this is gonna be an interesting streaming day. And it's probably gonna be because of this segment that's coming up. Not saying that they're monitoring me, but they may or may not be monitoring me. So, born in East LA.
The far left media is piling on President-elect Trump for raising awareness of the terror threats at the border. Instead, they say U.S. military veterans are the real threat.
What?
The simple fact is this country has suffered more deadly terrorism at the hands of American-born citizens who are veterans of the United States military than people who have crossed into this country at the southern border. It is very clear from the evidence that
You
if
guys
you wanna
remember when
worry
I
about
told you
terrorism
that
in this
DHS
country,
memorandum? Oh, that shit's coming back. It's going to come back to us. Watch.
the United States Army is a much bigger problem than the southern border.
That's not all. Quote, young white men
Oh,
are apparently
good.
also the problem.
The problem here is that you jump on one sort of crime, one crime committed by one name that sounds exotic, one brown face, rather than looking at all of the domestic terror that we face, including what the FBI says, is a really big problem, which is young white.
I like how it says liberal media says white men, not ISIS, a larger threat. So the guy in New Orleans, I don't know if you know, might want to double check. Yeah, he wasn't white.
Men in America.
According to the latest CBP data, border officials have encountered at least 395 non-citizens with suspected
What's up, Larth?
ties
How you doing,
to
brother?
terror under the Biden administration, compared to just 14 during Trump's first term. But they aren't hearing any of it.
I think we've all come to expect, sadly, that in the midst of some disaster or some terrible attack, Donald Trump will be chomping at the bit to unleash lies and the worst kind of bigotry. It can be really very dangerous.
He's stoking fear. Illegals, illegals, illegals. Nothing gets the Republican base more afraid than when you put that stuff out there.
What President-elect Trump did yesterday, deeply irresponsible, if not surprising.
Here he goes again. He talks about everybody else being fake news, and he's the one peddling fake news.
But he wasn't.
Joey, I'm going to begin with you, go to you straight away.
Yeah, first of all, Lawrence O'Donnell can kiss my ass. To say something like that, I mean, I'm sorry, the 20 years we spent at war defending this country, dying from suicide and bombs, I thought had erased the "you're a baby killer," but I guess it hadn't. I guess they're right back to it. You know, everything else the Democrats have tried has failed, so why not go there? Why not blame the military? Why not blame the veterans? Why not blame the 25 million veterans in this country that have served it honorably and have sacrificed for it? Because you can point out a dozen over the last 40 years that have done something terrible. You know, what's funny to me is he's hinging on this terrorism idea, like specifically terrorism, that military veterans are terrorists. Listen, we had Saudi Arabians come in this country and take 2 airplanes and fly them into buildings, and we still don't know how in the hell that happened.
Israel and the United
States.
States.
That's an immigration issue, right? I mean, is it not? Americans die at 200 plus a day from fentanyl pushed here by cartels. Those aren't terrorist organizations. They're not creating terror. They're not hanging people's heads on spikes in Mexico to send a message to those that would go against them. You can be as liberal as you want to be in this country and say anything you want to say. But to sit there and say, to justify an open border policy, or maybe just because you hate Trump that much, to say that the United States Army is a breeding ground for terrorists is not only shameful, it's absolutely despicable. And thank God that little small human being doesn't sit in front of me in person anytime soon, because the Georgia in me would come out in a heartbeat. That is absolutely insane. And the reason why it bothers me so much is if you look at this narrative that we have for what happened in Las Vegas, there's all kind of conspiracy theory around it, and I don't trust in my government enough to say any of it is true or false. But what we know in fact is that this guy served his country honorably for 18 years. And by all accounts, of what he left was not trying to hurt anyone but himself, because he was to the point of delusion from the trauma he received going to war for this country. It's tragic, it's wrong, it's illegal, it's criminal, it's completely irresponsible, even if he thought he wasn't going to hurt someone. But it's not freaking evil like driving down a sidewalk and mowing people over. So that veteran is not the same as the other veteran. And for someone like Lawrence O'Donnell that's been in this business as long as I've been alive to say something like that, I mean, Jesus Christ, they've lost all sense of decency, and it's just about getting the right headline in front of the right people, and it's absolutely sickening.
I mean, I was kind of feeling the same way, but it doesn't matter. Because of liberal mainstream media, and actually including Fox News, they keep pushing, this guy's a veteran, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, that's cool, though. What else was the issue? Like the Vegas shooter? I have a serious mental condition. However, I believe some of the things that he was talking about in that letter that's supposedly fake. He might be right, especially when it comes to the drones. And that's the fuck. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue with the next video. I really don't want to get into that too much more because, you know, the powers to be. Now, what's happening when you give the presidential Medal of Valor, not Medal of Honor? So, okay, let's get that straight. What happens when, when he just happens to get a question, you should answer. At least not lied about it. But, what do we expect from Joe Biden and the current administration?
Folks, I want you to come in because these 8 men have done things that are changing not only their lives, the lives of families that were able to celebrate Christmas, were able to, what they did. They saved children, they saved people in serious distress, they jumped into freezing water. They did it all. And I think it's very important that the public see them and know who they are. I know you have all their backgrounds, but what they did, they allowed people to continue their lives in ways that they never would have been able to. There's a lot fewer empty chairs around the kitchen table and dining table because of what these guys did. And what they did is amazing. They literally put their lives at risk, some of them at the point that you wonder how they could have had the nerve to do it. In addition to that, I want to thank their families, because if you're the spouse of a firefighter or a police officer, you always worry about that phone call. That one phone call you're going to get when they know the alarm went off. And so I want to thank them because I'm confident they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing without their support of their spouses and their families. So thank you guys. I really mean it. You're the best America has to offer.
Pay attention.
I'm so damn proud to stand with you. And I know you have a lot of questions for me, and I'm not going to answer unless they relate to this.
Related to this.
Later today. So anybody have any questions about these guys, holler around.
Thank you, Press. Thank you.
Mr. President, have you spoken to any of the families of the victims in New Orleans?
Yes, I have.
Oh.
What have they told you? What have their reflections been?
Thank you, Press. Thank
Oh.
you. Let's go, guys.
Whoa.
Any update on the suspects in those incidents?
Let's go, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Press. Thank you, sir. Thank
I'll
you.
talk to you later.
Thank you, guys. Join out. Thank you. Thanks so much. Let's go. All right, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Philip Handler's had to come out, make sure that he didn't divulge any more information, which, I could totally understand that. Well, mainly because he lied. He is visiting New Orleans, I believe, today. So we'll see. We know Kamala Harris won't be there because Kamala Harris is accepting her loss later on today by certifying the election. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled program. Well, sometimes. This is... Where did this happen? This happened in New Mexico in 2022. And the father of these young ladies handled it very, very well. Because I'm pretty sure I'd have been worse.
On April 23, 2022, officers in New Mexico dispatched to a local target after receiving a call reporting a target employee. The call reported that 2 young females saw the employee put a phone under the door and take pictures while they were changing. Here's what the officers did next.
So the girls are here. They said that one of our team members was taking pictures of them in the fitting room. So.
Have their parents come in?
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah. Okay. How old are you guys?
12.
12. Are your parents here?
No. My mom, she dropped us off. We were just going to try on some swimsuit, but she was going to pick us up in like an hour.
Okay. Is she on her way over here?
Yes.
Okay. As soon as your mom gets here, we'll talk, okay? Are you guys sisters?
No,
we're
she's
just
my
friends, but
friend.
I was at her house.
Okay. Before we talk about what happened, we'll wait to do that whenever your mom gets here. But until then, I'll just get a little bit of information from you guys, okay?
Thank you. If you want to stay for just a little bit longer, and then I'll be right back.
So both you guys are 12?
Yeah.
Okay. So
12.
we'll start with you. What is your first name?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're in.
Have you called your mom?
Yeah, she's not answering though.
She's not
Can I try
answering?
to call her now?
Yeah, go ahead. Try to call her.
Can I go get my mom?
I'll go grab her.
She's here.
Where is she at?
Oh, into the front door. Oh, she's right there. She's right there.
Hello, ma'am. How are you doing? So what happened?
Okay, so basically what happened was me and Sergi, we got some swimsuits and we went to the fitting room.
Okay.
We were just going to try some on. And so like right when we got there, like maybe like 2 minutes passed, we saw, she texted me. She was like, there's a guy. She was like, check your phone, because she didn't want to say it out loud.
Okay.
And she said, some dude just put his phone under the door like a camera, and I was freaked out. And that's when it happened. It was it was 3:48.
At 3:48 is when she texted you?
Yes, we were right. We were.
So
Her fitting room was right next to mine.
I had just walked in and I saw his like camera like under the thing. So then I texted, and like since I saw him, I opened the door and like whenever I came out, he was like on his knee like that under her.
And that's when I
under her
texted
thing.
him, and I was like, he's right there, and I was freaked out because he did the same thing to me right after.
Like he was like he was like taking pictures from underneath, and then like whenever I walked out, I saw him like on his knee under her thing, taking the picture, and then he walked away. So then I was like, let's just go. So then we like were out there, and he was about to walk back into the fitting room, but then he saw us standing there, and then we walked out. And then the lady that called the cops, she was in there like with her kid.
She was
so
in
we
there
just
with her daughter.
like told her just to make sure.
We
like,
let her know. And
Was that the lady that was sitting right here?
no,
No,
she had
it
blonde hair. She was just a customer.
Okay.
yeah. So we were just letting her know because we don't want
We
like
don't want the same thing to happen to
her.
her and her
And
daughter.
then so then she called you.
Do you remember what the phone looked like by chance?
It was a black case.
It was all black, and I think it was iPhone 11. It was like it was the one with like multiple cameras.
Okay. So like,
It had like a camera here, camera here.
what kind do I have?
So 11 or so.
Yeah, 11.
Yeah.
So like the camera's like that, but then also down?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let me take a look at those text messages that you had just to make sure that I got the time right.
Okay. It was right here. She texted me
And it was at-
right after she took
And it was at 3:48?
3:48.
3:48?
And I said, what? She said,
Some dude put a phone underneath the door. Okay. Is he still there? Okay. Oh, my blocked.
and then right after he did the same thing to me, I was freaking out.
And what time was that one at that you said? That one?
Yeah, like 3:49.
Like 3:40, so about a minute
Yeah, about a
after.
minute.
Okay. And what did this guy look like?
He was like maybe like your height, like a little shorter than you, and then he had black hair.
Like maybe like 5'10", 5'9"?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he had like like a dark curly hair, and then a tattoo like
neck
on
tattoo.
his neck.
Good. Mr. Derek, do you know which employee it was that these girls were talking about?
I do know which one they are claiming they was taking those pictures.
Okay. Have you talked to him?
I have not yet.
You haven't talked
No,
to
I
him?
just pulled them off stage and they were calling, so.
Okay. So nobody's talked to him. He doesn't really know what's going on.
No.
Okay. What like area does he work?
He works like in our fulfillment, so he walks around the entire store picking orders for our online shop.
Okay, one of that.
What the fuck's he doing in the dressing room?
So it wouldn't be uncommon for him to be in any part of the store at any given time.
It wouldn't be uncommon, except that there's no reason that he would be in the fitting room, and I don't know if he was or not.
Okay, so the fitting room, there's no reason that he should have gone in there?
No.
Is it like a gender-specific fitting room?
No, it's not.
So it's
Actually, literally, it's left is the female, right's the male.
Okay, is there somebody who like runs the fitting room? You know, like how sometimes they'll give you like the little card to put on the door.
We don't have like anybody specific over there. We have people that
My Target does.
people going in and out.
Okay, so nobody specific to like unlock the doors and give you like a card that has like 4 or 5 on it or something along those lines. Okay. I'd imagine though the video footage would pick up from the surveillance cameras anybody that goes in and out of the fitting room.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Which employee is it?
He's a guy. He has like curly hair. He has a big like neck tattoo. I don't see where he is at the moment.
Is Fred back, or is he still on his?
Fred's on LOA.
He's still on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Is there another area that I could chat with him at? Because those girls are in there with.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
What's up, community cardio?
Grab him and have him meet with me somewhere that we could chat at in private.
Sure.
Okay.
You want to come this way? I
Sure.
can take you to the room and I'll call it in.
I don't know. What's that? No.
Hey, Jacob, can you switch to 3, please? Hey, Jacob.
Hello?
Hey, Jacob, what's going on, man?
Hey, nothing much. How are you?
Hey, are you here at the store?
I'm on my 15.
Okay, when will you be back from your 15?
In like 7 minutes.
7 minutes? Alright, sounds good. Can you walk me when you get back?
So he's on his phone.
Yeah, did you want me to be somewhere or?
I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm running around doing some stuff. I just didn't know where you were, and I didn't hear your call out at 15, sorry.
Okay, yeah, no
You do know you don't need the headset to talk, right? You're on speaker.
Alright, sounds good. Thank you. Alright, bye.
Perfect.
If I let it close, we won't be able to open it again.
He said he has
Hope Dad's there.
stuff in there, so I'm sure you'll find it.
He does, man.
Well, just get.
Is that his phone?
Yeah, he said he has inappropriate shit in there.
And they got his phone.
You took that from him?
Yeah, he took it from him and said, "Don't take my phone, bro. I have inappropriate shit in there."
Perfect.
But he unlocked
Yeah,
it.
that's
You have
the
to hold it up to his face, and so he unlocked it.
Okay.
What up, Zip?
So what happened was, I was hoping that he didn't know I was here in regards to this. So we called him on the phone. We didn't tell him that I was here. And we had the manager say, "Hey, I need to chat with you for a second." So he knew that he needed to chat with the manager. I was hoping that he didn't know that we were here because we didn't know where he was at the moment.
What up, Case
Because
Wizzle?
the phone does have the pictures
And
on
you
it.
too.
The phone is evidence, and we don't want him tampering with it. So we were hoping that he wouldn't delete them.
Yeah.
The way that you got the phone worked out. Sometimes you have to play it by ear. So the fact that we got the phone at the moment, that's cool.
But of course, he deleted the pictures.
Hopefully, whenever we do try to talk to him, though, he'll still be able to.
No, he said he did. He said he took them. He's like, hold on.
He told you that?
He was standing right there, and he took them. He's like, hold on.
Just now he told you
I
that?
have some inappropriate shit in there. He's scared of my husband. That's what it is, because he got in his face. He didn't
Okay.
touch him, but.
I mean, it's your daughter. I mean, rightfully so. So they're gonna go chat with him now that we found out where he was, and he came back from disappearing. His phone will be taken for
Good cop.
evidence. So as soon as we figure out what kind of information we can get out of him, we'll let you guys know as well.
Do they have a camera that shows the?
So they have a camera that shows the fitting room. They don't have a camera in the fitting room.
Yeah,
though.
which makes sense because he was outside.
But did you see him go in the fitting room?
So I'm still waiting for it. So the manager had to request that piece of footage be downloaded and sent to him.
Right.
So he's working on that currently. So
Okay.
as soon as he gets that piece of footage downloaded and sent to him, then we'll be able to look at it on the computer.
Okay.
Where is he at?
He's just detained in the back right now.
Okay. You got anything here, sir?
Okay, cool.
What's going on, man?
I'm not changing. We can look at surveillance here, though.
I don't have access to the cameras. They're just sending me the video footage, but it looks like
Go to loss prevention. They have access.
they don't have like a shot of him going underneath things. But I know he's going to be back there, so.
Okay.
But they're uploading it now, so he said it takes a few minutes.
Who should I give this to for the time? It is his.
Oh, you guys,
Jacobs.
are you guys talking to him or?
We're talking to him, and he just sat it down on the ground out there. So I don't know if I should give it back
I can
to
take
him
it.
now or
That's
just
fine.
all right. As far as cameras, it would just be going into that area,
Yeah, it's
right?
the shot like straight down the fitting room.
Mhm.
For like so.
Does it? Can you see each individual's outer door or no?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
No. So
Okay.
as soon as it comes across, I can shoot that.
All right. Cool. I might go take a
What's up,
look.
Juniper?
As far as cameras right here, where are they at?
It's just this one. So you can see who enters and who.
Oh, just this one. Okay.
Yeah, just one.
Okay. Okay.
Otherwise, there's also.
Probably got 3 people.
Okay.
The closest one. That one? Yeah, that one is the one that.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
By any chance, could you go my 17? Not my 17, right?
15.
15.
yo, where are you
I don't
going?
want to come out while I do my investigation.
All right. Did you already talk with him or no?
No, he wants me to come talk to these people real quick first, just do my investigation with them.
As far as cameras, just so you know, that's the only thing that records really who goes in and out of the fitting rooms. So just so you know.
Okay.
Were you able to get that footage?
Yeah. I don't know if I can play it on my phone or not.
Are you able to like download it onto like a jump drive or something?
We don't have any ports.
Okay.
I can show you guys on the computer, but that's or I can email it to you. I don't know if you have access though.
Email might be beneficial.
And that's in reference to the surveillance is what you're talking about? Okay. This to you. So I'm going to give you the case number for the back.
Okay.
That's my email. You can read it, Jay Solito.
Okay.
You can send that to that email whenever you get the chance.
Okay.
I didn't even see him write the case.
Are you
note.
guys able to like check that immediately to see if you can open it because it's like on our server? So I don't know.
You can look at it right now on your computer, correct?
Yeah, I can. You guys want to check it out?
Yeah. You got girls' information, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can get that.
Look at the cameras now. You can put the handcuffs on him.
Didn't realize you was in that play.
Yeah, I was trying the family kind of. The family kind of messed up our tactical approach of.
How did the dad end up
He snatched it from him, put it in front of his face, opened it up, and started scrolling through it. So, he gave it to me open, so I closed it immediately.
501 ESA 9?
Yeah, I totally screwed up our tactical approach.
Well, no, it's, I mean.
176 PD, name and date of birth.
Correct. And for him, there's no reason to be like past the carpet here.
Is there any way to like put it in like double time?
That's what I was trying to figure out. I could do like 10 seconds at a time to see.
So 344, he's standing by it, kind of circling.
Have they already gone in?
501, can you advise on my call now?
I didn't see him going in this one. No, maybe we haven't gone in yet.
Answer the goddamn
What time is
phone.
it now? There it is. That's them walking in. What time are they walking in? So they walk in at 3:45. What time is it now?
3:46.
3:46. 3:47. So about 2 minutes. There it is, right there.
3:47 walks in.
You can see his phone's out. Phone is out at 3:47, and then it happened at 3:48. So these times are lining up.
So there's no reason that he should be in there.
Like maybe at the rack right here because they look for the stuff that people put back, but
Yeah.
there's no reason to. And there would, I think we have like 4 or 5 rooms only, so there's no reason to be back there at all, really, and then back there for this amount of time.
Because what you said is he's a fulfillment manager, and his
Team member,
task,
yeah.
team member,
Yeah.
and his task is basically going around and collecting the online
Yep.
orders. So at any point of the store, you said he could be at,
He could be anywhere at any
but there's
point.
no reason for him to be in the back.
Not over here, no.
Okay.
Yeah, because if he's gathering.
So that's him.
So what time is that?
3:49.
3:49. It lines up.
And you need assistance with that?
So at 3:40, he should go back in there.
Okay, I think I got it.
And he has his phone.
Let me
out,
know
so
when you're
we're
back
about-
at the city room and I'll go help you.
I want to notate that.
Phone is down.
And he's looking at something.
So, dude was taking pictures of 12-year-olds in the dressing rooms. Now, if any of those 12-year-olds were nude in any way, does he get charged with producing child pornography as well? That's a really good question. Is that you? I mean, that would make sense.
On his phone. So this is the mom and child. They're gonna talk to the mom and child here in a second.
I believe that's the lady that called you guys.
Okay.
Oh, sure, she's RP.
So we might want to call and get a statement from her when we're all said and done here. And then he goes back in.
Are you okay? That's my wallet.
Yeah, get him.
So we're conducting an investigation right now. You're a suspect in a crime. Okay, that's why I'm placing you under arrest. Okay? Yeah. You understand?
Thanks, Carmen.
Okay, now you're gonna look with anything that might focus that much. Okay, go ahead and separate your feet a little bit for me. Okay, man, someone's gonna do a quick pat down, okay? Just kind of see if you have anything on you.
Yes.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead. You guys want to pull? How do you want to pull your car? Time being? Okay, just for now. Let's go over here, bro. Okay.
Wait. That's weird. They already gave it back.
The car over here. We'll talk to you about what's going on. Everything like that, okay? Okay.
He looks like a winner.
But these are both for work, though?
Yeah, that's my vest and my walkie for work. I was on
Yeah.
break, so.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll fuck you up in jail.
I'm gonna put these inside just for the time being. Okay. All right, step out for me, okay?
Huh?
Lock the doors in a second and roll up the windows.
Wait. Are they going back in Target?
Roll up the windows.
Yeah, lock it and roll up the windows. And we're good to use this room?
Oh, they just detained him originally. Okay, got it.
Alright, you can have a seat on either side. Okay. Once he rolls up the windows and everything, we'll start talking, okay? Okay. Like I said, we have your phone for you. Okay. And we'll explain everything to you. We'll answer any questions you have and whatnot, and kind of fill you in with everything, okay? Okay.
So, we're talking to him right now. Depending on his statement, kind of depends on how we move forward. So today, if we can get him to admit what he did, we have pretty good evidence of it happening. We don't have it happening, but everything that your daughters have said was on video. The exact way that they explained it was the way that the video showed it. So,
okay, so you looked at the videos?
yes. The changing room itself doesn't have video, so you can't see what's going
Like
on.
in an hour, the timings me.
Exactly. But as far as all the timestamps and the events that occurred are on the video.
So that's not enough to move forward. He's obviously going to deny it, right?
So there's a possibility we can't determine that he took the photos without a confession of it or the proof on the phone. So we're gonna push for a confession, but if it's not something that we're able to get right now, if the lawyers up or something along those lines, then we'll have to go with the plan B. The plan B is, regardless of whatever happens in the interview with him, search warrant's going to be executed on this phone. So, in an ideally perfect world, he won't lawyer up. He'll tell us exactly what happened. At that point, we'll be arrested for it. Plan B is, if he does lawyer up, doesn't tell us what happens to it, we got to get that evidence. This phone contains that evidence. Whether it's on there now or whether he deleted it, we can get it with the execution of the search warrant. Once the search warrant is executed and that evidence is found and located, then at that point we can charge it with the with everything that we do have though and do know, and the fact that everything that your daughters told us was in that video with the exact times that they gave us, we're going to try to push with what we do know to get him to confess why he did it. Like I said, in the ideally perfect world, he'll tell us why he did it, what the mindset was behind it, and tell us what he did. In the world that we live in nowadays, you have the opportunity to lawyer up, and a lot of people take that opportunity. So that's kind of where we're at right now. As soon as we're finished, we can give you guys all phone calls and let you know. Regardless, like I said, this phone is going to evidence. He's not going to get back. And a search warrant will be executed on this phone, and everything that's on this phone is going to get downloaded and reviewed. So, and for photos that have been deleted with the execution of the search warrant, you can find those photos. So if he deleted them in the parking lot when he disappeared, they can be brought back.
You got the link? Oh, shit.
And then along with any sort of text messages or anything like that that could have been sent will also get reviewed. So any sort of information on this phone relating to this crime will get reviewed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
You got the link. I'll take a look at it.
All right.
Add it.
You guys have any other questions? All right. I'll
Not today, of course.
10-9. Yeah, I'm walking to you now.
Cool, man. So, I'm just going to ask you a couple questions, okay? But before I ask you any questions, I'm going to read you your Miranda rights, okay? Okay. So, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Do you understand each of these rights I've explained to you?
Yes.
Having these rights in mind, do you wish to talk to us now?
I feel more comfortable with a lawyer, but you can ask me a question, I'll see if I can answer.
Okay, so you want to talk to us?
just probably better get a lawyer if I can. You said if I can't afford one.
Like I said, if you cannot afford a hire lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you for any question if you wish.
Yeah, I would prefer that.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Let's do that.
Go out there real fast. I'll hang out with, what was your name on there?
That's Jacob.
Jacob, go ahead and have a seat, bro. We'll hang out here for a little while longer.
Okay.
Then we'll let you know what's going on, okay?
Alright.
So he says he doesn't want to talk.
He wants a lawyer.
Okay. Okay.
Never had that.
Like he thinks that's gonna save him.
Basically, what we'll do is we'll just tell him that we're going to be keeping his cell phone for evidence, and that we'll be serving a search warrant on it. And we'll go to our forensics team. So.
Because like you had mentioned, you can still get a picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Just mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to make a phone call, you can arrange for that.
Okay. Okay. So like you mentioned, you have the right to a lawyer. Okay. What we're going to do today, I'd reference to the cell phone.
Thank you.
Okay. We're gonna search warrant for it. So you're not taking that with you. So basically, what we're gonna do with that phone is we have a forensics team that can get if there's pictures, anything on that deleted, we can get the pictures off of that.
Okay.
So I just want to let you know that now.
Okay.
Okay. So that's gonna be put in place.
Oh, wait.
So I just won't have a phone.
It's gonna be contacted down the line, but.
Yeah, do you have an alternative phone number we can reach you at?
No, that's my only one that's in service.
You don't have maybe a parent that you live with?
Is there a family member that we could contact?
If you're talking about that 38 whatever old dude that was living with his parents, I think I did that last week or the week before.
Contact you.
Yeah.
Whose phone number is that?
That should be my dad's.
That's your dad's? What's dad's name?
Yeah, he works.
Okay. Where does he work at?
He works at a school that, like a high school. It's like a charter school. Yeah, but my mom's not all there. So
Okay.
it would probably be better to contact my dad.
Okay.
I think the best, not really the best part of that video is like when he realized, oh fuck, they know, and then he gave that stupid look.
Give me the address. Cut him out.
Yeah. We'll
advise him.
I talked to Byron, so he's going to be ready for the extraction tomorrow morning. So we need to go get a search warrant.
Oh, for the phone.
Before tomorrow, or tomorrow at the latest. Okay. And he'll be ready to get everything off that phone. So.
If you're in New Mexico, how long can they hold him?
Are you guys going to want him off the property?
Yeah, I was gonna either have you guys tell him you can't come back until we have an HR call him on Monday. But yeah, he's not really welcome back.
Okay. So yeah, we'll
trespass him. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna cut you loose.
Never mind.
So basically, like I already mentioned, like we said, we're moving forward with the legal process. Expect something in the mail in the near future. At this time, you're no longer welcome at this target. Okay. So.
Roll that hand out of there.
You take him to the office?
They can get that for you like on Monday.
Yeah, no, we don't need it like immediately, but just obviously the quicker the better.
Yeah, we can trace them from the whole time.
Yeah, that's the only thing, because they didn't tell us that they had seen him around the bathing suit aisle, so we're just gonna tighten everything up. So if we could just get that at some point, that would be extremely helpful.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, no rush, but
as rush as we can.
No, I mean, like, we don't need it like tomorrow,
Yeah.
but just like the quicker it makes it better for us. So.
Okay.
You have his contact info, so. Okay, perfect.
So watch, come over here.
The suspect was charged with 2 counts of voyeurism. The suspect failed to appear in court and was issued a bench warrant. The suspect has evaded custody and remains on the run.
Oh. Oh. I definitely didn't watch that all the way through. Those motherfuckers still out there. He's probably in Mexico by now. Not the fact that he's a Mexican. He's probably not with the name Jacob. Jacob, unless his name is Jacob. I don't know. Maybe he moved to a more friendly state like New Mexico. Colorado? California. Anyway, so the other day we started a docuseries on... Fuck, my mind just went blank. Zippity. Oh, fuck. It doesn't matter. So it was a 2-part series. We watched the first 2 parts, and we will now continue on the continuation, and I plan on watching all 3 of them, so might be here for at least another... Wow, that took me 45 minutes. Well, let's go.
This is a WDIV production.
We would like to make a request to the people in Birmingham. We have information that several youngsters were seen playing around the Chatham parking lot on the night that Timmy disappeared. We'd like to have these persons call the Birmingham Police Department and give us any information they can.
Not only was the public nervous, frightened, scared to death about what was happening to our children, but you had some doubts creeping in to the public as to whether the police were doing a good job.
Sergeant Crease, are you taking any special preparations to catch this guy if he strikes again? His attacks have become more and more frequent, December, January, and now March. Have you got a trap set?
I'm certainly not going to comment on this, but as far as the local police departments, I think they've geared up and are more aware.
This is where the youngster was last seen leaving at 8:30 Wednesday night. And authorities are saying that somebody must have seen something that evening, and they're asking people to come forward.
To those persons or person who may be with Tim, I don't know if you have children or if you want to have some, but please treat Tim the same way you would your own kid.
The clock was ticking, and you knew that these kids were going through something horrible.
My family and the world were cheated when that happened.
I mean, there's lots of names you could give this case. The kids, it was unusual because they were held for several days. There's the snow killer, the babysitter killer, there's lots of different names.
she claims she saw Tim talking next to a man, and they were standing next to a gremlin. It was a blue gremlin with a white hockey stripe.
With the amount of coverage that we had to know that we had assembled probably the largest task force in the United States to work on a case like this. And I'm sure that the pressure caused him to move to Wayne County.
I'm convinced to this day that when Timmy was kidnapped, he knew what was going to happen to him.
Tim was abducted on March 16, 1977, sexually abused, and suffocated on March 22nd.
So now police know they have a serial child killer on their hands, and they organized the largest manhunt in U.S. history at the time. They create a task force and set up shop in an abandoned school, elementary school.
All of these cases, of course, similar, children abducted and murdered, but the police and the public did not put all the pieces together yet because there were differences between between each case, different enough that we just couldn't connect all the dots. But when Timothy King was found murdered, things became very clear.
Timmy King, who lives in Birmingham, who was well schooled by his parents about what was going on, and asked Kathy, his older sister. His parents had gone to Peabody's, which was a restaurant that was kitty corner from the shopping complex where Tim disappeared. Barry and Marion were with a client having dinner there.
His sister Kathy had given him some change to go down to the corner store, Hunter Maple Pharmacy, to get some candy.
Kathy was on her way to go see Jerry Lewis in concert downtown.
Mark had a babysitting job that night.
The other was working on a school play at high school.
Mark had the lead in the 9th grade play up here, and they wanted him to come up for that, so Chris went to babysit, and so...
Tim asked Kathy if he could go up to Hunter Maple Pharmacy, which is a block and a half away. She gave him 30 cents. He didn't want to use his own money because he was saving up for a light blue running tracksuit.
He was 11 or 12 years old, took his skateboard, went down the street.
And was never seen again.
That's the last time the family had ever seen him.
Age 11, 4 feet, 63 pounds, hair brown, eyes brown, living at Yorkshire, City of Birmingham, 3400. This is KHJU Portable Lake. The time is 11:31 hours.
For an hour or so, Tim was alone at the house, and we were just quite surprised when we got here that he wasn't here. But I don't feel bad about taking Marion out to dinner. I don't feel bad about the other kids going where they went. So I wouldn't have made any decisions the other way.
The key to Timothy King's disappearance is still the rear door here at the Hunter Maple Pharmacy. This is where the youngster was last seen leaving at 8:30 Wednesday night. And authorities are saying that somebody must have seen something that evening, and they're asking people to come forward.
A woman saw him come out and saw him in the parking lot and saw him by a car that was driven by a man.
When he disappeared, the Birmingham Police Department was contacted. They came out and they interviewed the family. Chris King, who was his brother, for example, said that a couple of hours after he discovered his brother gone, he started searching the neighborhood.
Chris went with his mom to drive around the neighborhood to all the friends' houses. And finally they drive up to the last friend's house and the lights weren't on. And Chris said, "Do you want me to go in, Mom?" And she said, "No, he's not there." And then she started to cry, and Chris said, "That was horrible, because by then you knew the clock was ticking." One of the most tragic things I think about this case, and I'll get back to Tim, is the fear was and panic was so pervasive that once a kid was snatched, all you could think about was the unthinkable, what was going on, and while you dreaded going to the mailbox and picking up the newspaper for fear of seeing a blazing headline that said "body found," at the same time the clock was ticking and you knew that these kids were going through something horrible.
The family of Timothy King went public and begged the killer to let their child live and to release Tim.
Somebody from television came to me, and I just thought I was talking to Tim.
Well, I want to say hi to Tim. We love you, Tim. God bless you. Stay tough. I have one other statement to those persons or person who may be with Tim. I don't know if you have children or if you want to have some, but please treat Tim the same way you would your own kid. Talk to him. He's a talkative kid if you've spent some time with him.
I don't remember whether that was my idea or somebody else's, but I just wanted Tim to know we wanted him back.
Chris, that night, big brother, all of 16 years old, is going to go in and avenge and find his brother, and he grabs his baseball bat and he walks up to Hunter Maple Pharmacy in the Chatham Market parking lot, and he sees several cars, and he checks each one. And one of those cars was a Gremlin, and he knew there was a Gremlin and remembered that there was a Gremlin because he was a fan of that car. They had Levi upholstery, jean upholstery. So he goes home, and Kathy comes home from the concert, and Kathy was kind of their last hope. And then they ended up calling the police. I shop at that grocery store every day. I'm up there every day for the last 25 years.
We have information that several youngsters were seen playing around the Chatham parking lot on the night that Timmy disappeared. We'd like to have these persons call the Birmingham Police Department and give us any information they can about what they saw when they...
Do you have reason to believe that these youngsters saw Timmy King that night?
We know they were in the parking lot, and we're hoping that they possibly did see him.
So there are helicopters taking on and off from Poppleton Park. Traffic lines started to form in neighborhood streets throughout the county because it was school dismissal time, and no parent wanted to let their kid walk home alone. The police department in some jurisdictions started fingerprinting kids just in case.
He was a very popular kid. He was the smallest kid on the baseball team and was a leadoff hitter. Went 2 for 2 in the All-Star game. He wasn't a superior student, but he got A's and B's through the 6th grade, and he knew everybody. He was very sociable, and my family and the world were cheated when that happened.
You want me just to give a general statement, or you want to ask the questions?
General statement.
Okay. All right. The Birmingham Police Department received a report from a King family in the city of Birmingham that their youngest son, Timothy King, had not returned home. Timothy is 11 years old, and this report came in at midnight. We have an extensive search in the Birmingham area. We have utilized both the sheriff's office, and we have also the task force that is presently working on the other crimes that have committed in the Oakland County area in our station and working at this time.
How many officers is that, Chief?
I would say that right now there are probably, as we get to noon, there'll probably be close to 100 officers involved right now.
Are there similarities? Got much valuable experience from the other crimes?
Yes,
crimes in Oakland County?
we have. I want to, it's a little premature at this time to say we're right on top of it.
Has the youngster had a discipline problem?
No.
Could this be a kidnapping or runaway?
We don't believe it would be a kidnapping or a runaway. I would say that, again, we would not want to jump to some conclusions at this time. We want to remain optimistic at this point.
The King's address is on Yorkshire. How
That's
close
correct.
is that to the location where Sheila Schrock, the babysitter, was murdered just over a year ago?
It's very close.
3 blocks.
I would say 3 to 4 blocks.
Similarities between Schrock and...
No, there are no similarities between the Schrock murder and the missing youngster here we have on Yorkshire.
How far
was the jacket found?
This jacket was not found. This is a jacket that's similar to the one that Tim was wearing.
How far is the drugstore from the youngster's home?
About 3 blocks.
He had not had a fight with his family.
No fight with the family, no reason to leave home.
Well, it was late at night when we finally called the cops, but I had deep suspicions that he was in the situation that he was at, and that went on for 6 days. I was very pleased that almost from dawn to 10 o'clock at night, people were at this house to console my family, and that's the part I remember the most. I didn't know I had that many friends. But I anticipated that what was going to happen happened.
This street will be closed until probably sometime late this afternoon to allow the crime lab people to do the thorough job that we have asked of them. Tentatively, the body of the young lad down there is Timothy King. There will be a news conference probably at 9 o'clock this morning. Birmingham Police Department. Same location we've held other interviews and news releases.
What do you think the cause of death is?
It's too early to tell, and we're not going to second guess the lab and the medical examiner.
There are no obvious signs on the body?
Gentlemen, we have stayed back to let the crime lab people do their job. We only got close enough to give the tentative identification.
How long do you think he's been dead?
I can give no answer
Can you
on
give
that.
us some background to how the body was found?
No, I can't at this time. We received our call from Livonia stating a body had been found and that The clothing description was similar to that of our missing boy.
Was that about
The red
11 o'clock
jacket
found there?
I received the call from the station at 11:30.
Do you know whether or not the Livonia Fire Department tried to revive the body when they found it?
I do not.
Is it true a red jacket and skateboard was found with the body?
In fact, I know I saw the red jacket and the green pants and the shoes. All tentative identification is there.
What about signs of violence on the body? Does it look like anything like stabbing, shooting, anything like that?
No open signs that we could see from our position in the middle of the road.
Can you tell us why the Sheriff's Department has this area blocked off?
So people can work.
Are they checking license numbers and cars thoroughly to see perhaps if there's a suspect in the area?
Gentlemen, we're doing a number of things that we can't release right at this time. I still feel the most important aspect is the investigation and get this animal off the street.
All three of his siblings remember me telling Tim that if anybody tried to pick him up, he should drop everything he had, run as fast as he could, and scream. And I'm convinced to this day that when Timmy was kidnapped, he knew what was going to happen to him. And as an 11-year-old kid, there was nothing he could do about it. And that's the aggravating part of the murder to me.
Barry and Marion had the wherewithal and courage to put on a press conference. Finally, on March 22nd, 5 or 6 days after Tim had gone missing, two kids are driving down Gill Road near 8 Mile in Farmington, and they see, I think they see Tim's red hockey jacket.
We're going to say that the body, the officer believed that there was still a chance, so he called the fire department there. They were unsuccessful.
Did they try to revive him?
We understand they did.
Why did he think the body might still be alive?
It was still warm.
So police performed CPR.
That involved Livonia police. So they had a bunch of detectives up in the task force too. You know, they thought, oh, they're going to solve this one. Well, I mean, Timmy King, when he was found, they thought he was still alive. They tried to resuscitate him, and they couldn't, so.
And Mary and Kathy were home, and there were neighbors over, and they were watching the Johnny Carson show. I think Barry had gone to sleep, or Barry was listening to the radio. And police had asked the media not to report anything until they were able to tell the Kings. And but then a small ticker headline went at the bottom of the TV, and it said a body has been found. So
I was in bed and had the radio on, and they said something about finding the body there, and I knew it had to be Tim. And it was verified shortly thereafter. My wife and some additional people were still awake and were here in the living room. And our family priest and one of the leading Birmingham police officers confirmed everything to us. But I was not surprised.
Police told me last night it was about 11 o'clock when two teenage boys from Detroit had driven down Gill Road. They'd gotten this far, about 200 yards south of 8 Mile Road. They spotted the body of Timothy King. They went to that house back there, another 200 yards, and told their story to Lester Davis.
Well, the cat was out at 10:30, about a half an hour before this whole thing occurred, and then the boys knocked on the door, and they said they saw the cat. I says, well, now, wait a minute, hang in there. And at that time of night, I wasn't about to let anybody in the house. It was, about 11 o'clock. The cat got out at 10 o'clock. And I didn't let them in. I said, well, you guys just hang in there. Went down there, and there it was. So that was it. And so I came back in the house.
Do you think the boy could have still been alive when he was dumped there?
Well, I don't know. I was up all night, and I'm not a doctor. I don't doubt anybody's word of what they say, but I did see the doctor lift his arm up. When I first went down there, the boy's arm was behind him. He was laying on his left cheek and his body left side to the mud, which was more or less frozen at that time of night because of the cold weather. And then I noticed that the arm had been moved. And then I heard that the fire department had been there to check over to see if he was dead. And I will never doubt the word of a fireman. They know. These guys are our greatest. And they said he was dead, so he was. And I don't think the body had been there any more than an hour before the cat let the boys know that it was there, and they knocked on the door, and I called the police and all that so-called bit. It's one of those things. I answering your question, I don't know, but I take everybody's word for it. As I say, the Livonia police, after I called them, I didn't even get the flashlight hardly out of the drawer, and they were here just like snap, just like that. And they didn't fool around. They went right to the point, and that was it.
The autopsy was conducted by Dr. Spitz of the Medical Examiner's Office in Wayne County. The overall results were that death occurred sometime between 6 and 8 p.m. yesterday. Sexual abuse did occur. Stomach contents were of food that was consumed about 2 hours before death.
The autopsy of Timothy King showed that he had had a chicken dinner shortly before he was murdered. The killer heard or read the comments by Mrs. King and made it a point to feed Tim his favorite meal before he was killed. In a macabre twist, almost adding to the injury and misery of the family.
Happens to you, it doesn't make any difference whether he's kidnapped and murdered or run over by a car on the way home. He's just not here anymore.
The parish priest, Don Stutt, Detective Jack Caldflesh, and another detective took Marion to the morgue to identify the body. That woman amazed me. She's just, by force of sheer will, she said, I've got 3 other kids to raise, and I'm not going to let this decimate the rest of their lives. But Chris said it wasn't like, we didn't talk about Tim. He was just, we celebrated him at Christmas and talked about his sense of humor and the fact that he loved to play hockey and Little League, but they didn't talk about the crimes.
Death was caused by suffocation. Basically, that's it.
Were there any bruises on the body?
There were some marks for binding of the hands and feet, yes.
Any indication that you've been gagged or anything like that? Anything around the mouth?
Only the suffocation aspect.
Was there any indication of what kind?
My question is, did they even have a person of interest yet? All they had to go off was a blue gremlin. Did they check the database for blue gremlins?
Contents of the stomach.
Yes, fowl and corn.
What's that, sir?
Fowl, chickens, or turkey, you know.
You said there was evidence of blinding of the hands and feet, is that correct?
Yes.
That now, when he was found, he was not found, is that correct?
No, he was not.
So this occurred sometime during his imprisonment term.
You could read the entire report to tell you that due to blood and such, they can tell before or after, and this was before.
Do you have any idea, any indication of whether he was murdered at the scene or somewhere else?
It's the doctor's opinion he was not murdered at the scene.
Was the body clean?
Yes,
Washed?
it was clean.
Chief, any indication of how the suffocation might have taken place? By hands or whatever?
Covering of the mouth, whether it was with a cloth or, I don't think he could say that either.
Was the cleansing of the body similar to that of the other children?
I guess I would have to pass that to the people who handled the previous three. I was not involved in those three.
Was the body thrown in the ditch? Or was it laid there?
It appeared that it was laid there.
Was the body on its back or its head out?
Back side, partially on the side.
Were there fingerprints taken on the body? Did anything turn up?
All physical evidence is being run through the lab, and I cannot give you an answer to that at this point. I mean, we cannot. We just don't have the answer yet.
Can you tell us how long it is before it takes a body to cool?
Well, of course, outside temperature has something to do with it, but rigor and such, 2 to 4 hours. And it is still in the lab.
The bodies were looked like they'd been cleaned and scrubbed, and maybe even a shower. No, they weren't all cut up, and, not like the hillside kill out in California. These kids were relatively good condition.
Sheriff Spreen pointed out after Timothy King's discovery that the bodies were scrupulously clean. The police had revealed that publicly, and it was a mistake for the police to be revealing all this
definitely fucking
information.
sounds like it.
Then that would help the killer know what he had to do to get away with a future crime. All this was going on, and with the public being so fearful, the last thing they needed was to see quarreling police officers, but that's what they saw. And so now they were frightened about a killer, and they were frightened that the police were bungling this case.
I think the person that had the best take on it at the time was Warner Spitz, the medical examiner that did the autopsy on the fourth victim, Tim King. And he said, I wouldn't say so much that the suspect was meticulous, more so that the suspect took care enough to at least feed the victims, keep them somewhere that was warm and dry. They weren't laying in the dirt somewhere. And it got blown out of proportion over time, as being the kids were bathed and hair cut and washed and teeth brushed and all. I mean, it just got out of hand, but I think it was more so the fact that Warner Spitz felt that the victims were relatively well cared for as far as exposure.
Well, we can keep processing these tips. And as I say, we need the phone call or the letter from the relative who tells us that they know that this person has kept a child, they realize that this is a killer, and they are going to turn the person over to us. And I think they have to know that we're going to act prudently and in a proper way in doing this. We realize that we have got to take this person off the streets, and I think they have to too.
When the two boys when there's evidence that they had been molested, that's when we thought that there could be two separate killers.
Chief Tobin reiterated at the news conference that someone out there knows this killer or killers, and he begs that the person come forward with information and put an end to this ordeal that has shaken the entire community.
I concluded in my own mind early on that there was strong likelihood that only one person was involved, because I thought if there were two people involved, one of them would ultimately talk.
On the composite that we've got up there on the board.
Yo, I'm so confused because I've been watching. Yesterday I was watching a different one. This guy didn't kill 2 girls, right? To throw people off?
This is a composite picture of a witness that we feel was the last person to see the missing boy in the Birmingham area. We're hoping that this witness will come forward, or anyone knowing this person will come forward and identify him to us so that we can interview him.
One by one, these kids disappeared, and we found them a week or so later. And we kept saying, well, all the kids, after the first couple were taken, we know the parents told their children, don't go with strangers, don't fall for the old ruse that your mother sent me, and that kind don't do that. And yet he continued to go willingly with who he may have been disguised as a priest, may have been disguised as a doctor, who knows.
If all 4 of these kids went with their captor willingly, police surmised that it had to be somebody they knew. That made everybody suspect. It could be your teacher, it could be your minister, it could be your priest, it could be your cop.
I can't imagine anybody doing what they're doing. And I can't imagine people not turning people in that do that. But I can't change society.
From what I understand from talking to detectives that worked the original investigation, there were guys that were upset that they had to follow a certain tip and not one that sounded better, and they would maybe bicker a little bit about who was getting the better tips. And that sort of thing, I guess, is common. I mean, all detectives want to do a good job.
Want to be the one.
Want to solve the case. And the reason we're in this business, I mean, we're somewhat competitive people. So, I mean, I think that would be normal. I'm not saying that it was overdone or it was crazy, the arguing or fighting or anything amongst the task force, but there's rumors of that kind of stuff happening, and I think that's normal course of business.
What contributed to the fact that the body was not left in Oakland County, but instead in Livonia?
I'm certain that the responsible person knew that we were aggressively working, and he certainly, with the amount of coverage that we had to know that we had assembled probably the largest task force in the United States to work on a case like this, and I'm sure that the pressure caused him to move to Wayne County.
Did this follow the same pattern of the other 6?
It followed a pattern of other crimes that we've had.
Do you want to make a statement about that now?
No, I think we would rather evaluate that in the morning with the task force officers. I'll know better when we've made a crime scene evaluation. So, can't think of anything else to say.
Where do you go from here? What do you do now?
Well, you gear up, as I say, you gear up to look for the person responsible as opposed the other way. It's a different strategy, different investigative techniques are employed. It's much more aggressive from now on. And as I say, there's a different motivation driving the officers at this point. And, I can guarantee the public that there are going to be a lot of policemen out there shaking the bushes. And I hope we come up with a person, because if not, I think we're going to be doing the same thing, in a matter of months all over again.
It seems like every time I get one piece of information, it raises two more questions. And I think the prosecutors are elected to protect the victims.
Supposed to be.
I trusted the police and the prosecutor to do the right thing by me.
I completely understand what Barry would like. I get that. As a father, I would want the same thing. And I know Brooks Patterson made a statement to the media a year or two ago. He said that if I was the Oakland County prosecutor right now, I'd bring Mr. King in and open the files up on a table and let him look at everything. And that's because Brooks Patterson has compassion for these families. That's probably part of what Barry's getting at. But, it's an ongoing investigation, and we are going to keep the Kings and all the other families informed the best we can for right now.
Yeah, I hope it's solved for his sake. And somebody can go and tell him. And I hope that person is Corey Williams.
I hold out hope that either through technology or through interviews or a tip that it's gonna get put together, and these poor families are gonna finally have some resolution.
One more thing that's not part of this whole case, but if you ever have a tragedy like this in your family, don't forget about it for decades. Two of my children, after 2007, told me they were under mental observations for more than a decade. Never talked to us about it, I think partially because Marion wouldn't allow any of this talk at the house. But children that age can't make lifetime decisions. And if it ever happened in your family, talk about it for a couple of decades.
Thank you, Barry.
So wait. Did they not find the guy? I'm confused. I thought this was a case closed. Because that looked more modern. Well, this is still 2019, so I don't know. All right. Now we're on to part 4 of the North Fox Island. The fucking gym teacher, I guess, and the financier who had his own island. Okay, this is the story. Okay, it's coming back to me now.
This is a WDIV production.
It seems like every time I get one piece of information, it raises two more questions.
I never saw Nord before or after one as large as the Oakland County murder investigation, that task force. They called on every resource they could find.
These are all good citizens that are trying to help. But when it boils down to the fact that we need the police officers out there first, and we should have enough police officers to respond to anything that these people call in.
And it has been stressed that they are to just be eyes and ears for the police department. They are not to get involved whatsoever. They are not to chase violators, anything like that.
I'd love to be able to resolve it for the families foremost, but yeah, for my dad too.
I can't imagine anybody doing what they're doing. And I can't imagine people not turning people in to do that. But I can't change society.
Whoever was taking these kids had a very persuasive, I think, approach.
Over time, I've realized this is a roller coaster ride. Every once in a while, we get real excited about something, then we get disappointed,
God, he was a
and then
magician,
we
too.
regroup, work a new lead, and it's more of a marathon than a sprint.
I'm a firm believer that if there's smoke, there's probably fire, and it's coming from somewhere.
We feel that we are engaged in one of the largest law enforcement investigations ever to be assembled, and we would like to continue it until we can resolve this case.
So now police know they have a serial child killer on their hands, and they organized the largest manhunt in U.S. history at the time. They create a task force and set up shop in abandoned school, elementary school.
This morning, in the Southfield Police Department, a task force was formulated. There were approximately 35 detectives from the following departments participating: Troy, Ferndale, Southfield, Berkeley, Royal Oak, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, Oak Park, Franklin, Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, Oakland County Sheriff's Department, Michigan State Police, and the FBI. These 35 investigators from those agencies have formed a task force primarily to investigate and solve the Mihalik homicide.
Cops used to come in on their days off to try to, because we were getting so many tips, we just couldn't handle them in the normal routine. So they come in on their day off and work the case. Yeah, you're right, it was a big task force. Departments where children had been taken from within those cities, they assigned people. The state police were in charge. The sheriff's department was there. And of course, you know, at some point in time, I think every law enforcement agency in Oakland County sent somebody into the task force.
Some of these volunteers have been here since 5:30 this morning, answering the phones which ring every 3 seconds. And each time the phones ring, they hope that it will be a tip that will lead to the capture of the child killer.
It is not only the responsibility of police departments and authority figures, but I feel that it is the responsibility of all citizens, young and old, to partake in this investigation.
We want to know if they have a name of an individual, then if they have a license plate number of a vehicle. These are things that are important. And then why is this person a suspect in their mind? All of this information is written down in one of our tip sheets, and then it goes from the telephone here over into either our callback in case they have additional information, lien information, that's if there's a license plate number of a vehicle, or into the tips box. These tip sheets are then evaluated here and given a priority. For instance, if we get a very hot tip, it will be immediately given a tip number, called down to the command post, and a team of 2 detectives will be assigned to follow up immediately on that particular tip.
10-4 there, Mobile Watch 2.
We supplied the people with the ability to use a mobile radio and to call our station, where we will forward the communication to our desk and send the appropriate police personnel. I don't feel that this type of volunteer program will in any way detract from police employment.
It's yours, man. How have things been going, Mr. Stout?
Well, it's been interesting. The weather has made it kind of nasty to drive around here and do your looking here, but we're doing the very best we can to find this missing youngster.
Why did you get involved in a search like this?
Well, I belong to the Repeater Association of amateur radio operators that are involved in this search.
KHJU, Portable 8. This is KWY in Mobile at the Southfield and 12.5-mile road here. Over.
Very good, Sherman. We do appreciate that.
We were out till about 1 o'clock this morning, and with all the heavy snow and everything, it was really pretty rough in some of these areas, especially around the lakes and west of here.
You've searched that far, so...
Oh, yeah. And others, too. We're not the only one.
Just how can your delivery men aid the police in this investigation?
Our delivery men cover probably more area of the Royal Oak, Madison Heights, all this area, every day, day in and day out. They're on the streets 5-6 hours a day. They should, if there's anything out there, they should be able to see it as well as everybody.
That's true.
They hit every house, all the people. They have good coverage.
Has there been much discussion among the men about this case and what's been happening out here in Oakland County?
Between this case, the case in Berkeley, which I deal directly with all the Berkeley carriers, they were all up in arms. They're curious, wondering. One mailman found one girl over there in the ditches, Hythrop or wherever it was.
Back in January.
Back in January.
So they're eager to take on this added responsibility.
Well, I think they'll do their best. If they see anything, they'll report it. Birmingham police have brought this down for us, and they want our assistance, help them out. Anything we can come up with, call the phone number.
My husband works on the Royal Oak Police Department, so they worked till 4 o'clock this morning. He was on the afternoon shift, and he worked from 2:30 to 4 in the morning, on a special deal looking out for everybody. So, yeah, there's a lot of discussion, everybody's keeping their eyes open. Okay, thank you.
There are virtually 7 or 8 communities that are involved in this series of criminal events, not just Birmingham. We have the killer methodically moved along the Woodward corridor from Ferndale to Royal Oak to Berkeley to Birmingham. Subsequently, he dropped bodies in Southfield, Franklin, Troy. So all of these departments are involved and have a definite interest in resolving this crime, these many crimes. And they would be contributing their top investigative people to this task force.
In the past 24 hours, we have obtained over 600 tips, workable tips, that are being put out to the detectives to work on.
When the tips came in, and the citizens I got no complaint. They were doing their best, but they sent out a lot of, rumors, and the police felt duty bound to investigate. So none of them panned out, unfortunately.
The task force that's been involved in Oakland County. This took it into Wayne County. You haven't been involved in it before. Are you going to join that and take it to your own direction or what?
We were involved. Numerous jurisdictions in Wayne County sent people over here to work before the body was found. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I believe they started as a cooperative effort. Well, now that the boy has been found in Wayne County, we feel, and this includes Prosecutor William Cahalan, that we should all stay under the task force jurisdiction and proceed so we don't lose any continuity or any advantage we already have. The final jurisdictional prosecution, if there will be one, and we certainly hope there will be, that can be determined at the end. We certainly aren't going to disrupt anything. We're going to continue and add more people. This is a cooperative effort. Boundary lines really don't mean anything.
We're doing it on a priority basis. We've probably got a little over 1,500 tips total, but we try to break it down to take the most urgent first. And we're doing the best we can with the manpower we've got.
I think from the task force standpoint, that the fact that the task force was called into this case right in the beginning, the fact that we had excellent crime scene protection, the laboratory has got the evidence, I think that put those all together and we should be successful.
Pick the music for this shit.
Do you feel the task force here will be instrumental in catching the man?
Oh, I'm sure it will. This is the only way to go as far as I'm concerned.
You can look. 200 blue ones?
Right.
Approximately, yeah.
That's the problem. We can have 50, 60 teams of detectives. It's still going to take time to turn those amount of gremlins.
With the blue hockey stick, or white hockey sticks?
The gremlin.
Blue gremlin.
Blue gremlin.
A gremlin.
Gremlin. Blue gremlin.
Blue gremlins.
Blue gremlin.
Chris, that night, you know, big brother, all of 16 years old, is going to go and invent and find his brother, and he grabs his baseball bat and he walks up to Hunter Maple Pharmacy in the Chatham Market parking lot, and he sees several cars, and he checks each one. And one of those cars was a gremlin, and he knew there was a gremlin and remembered that there was a gremlin because he was a fan of that car.
A theory becomes a narrative, and the narrative then becomes the story. For example, the gremlin. When you actually hear about the gremlin and how that became the car to look for, and it is still looked for today, it is absolutely shocking.
Her name was Edith Braulbacher, was getting her prescription filled at the time that Tim was up at the drugstore. And she claimed she saw Tim talking next to a man, and they were standing next to a gremlin. It was a blue gremlin with a white hockey stripe.
He was wearing a rust-colored sport jacket with dark pants. He's soft-spoken and has dark brown hair cut in a shag. We believe that he's driving a late model blue gremlin with white wall tires. Anyone with any information would please contact the Birmingham Police Department.
She was the first person to give police help a police artist develop a composite drawing. The gremlin took off from there because they had an actual eyewitness who saw Tim standing next to a gremlin and talking to somebody that likely appeared to be driving it. And the gremlin took off. Certainly in the height of hysteria, with so little to go on, I can see why it would.
And I recall as late as July 1, 1978, the standard ad, $100,000, had only a blue gremlin on it.
A sketch was disseminated around the public that people my age remember very clearly. A man, a white male in his 30s with dark hair and long sideburns, who was connected to a blue AMC gremlin. That was the image that was passed around in thousands of flyers all around our region.
There were tire tracks found at the scene of where they found the body of Christina Haley. Match the gremlin at all?
Not to my knowledge, no.
We would hope that you wouldn't start speculating in that area, okay? We're telling you what we would like you to know. And if you speculate, you could ruin things for us.
Some woman comes out of the drugstore and says, I think I saw a blue gremlin. And we spent months tracking down blue gremlins. And the people who had blue gremlins probably got stopped every other block.
I've really been worried about it because I work in Oakland County, and I'm in downtown Birmingham a lot. I get some strange looks.
You mean people driving by look at you funny?
Yeah, they look in the car to see, who's driving it. And when they see it's a girl, they usually, just say, oh, well.
Okay. I said, look, you guys stop the cars. If you, I'll take the heat. Because you normally have to have a probable cause to make a stop. I said, if you see a car that looks suspicious, go ahead, stop it, and search it. And if there's any backlash because of the Fourth Amendment protections, I'll stand for it.
Brooks actually suspended the Fourth Amendment in Oakland County while this investigation was going on. If you drove a Gremlin in Oakland County, you're getting pulled over and the car was getting searched. What a gross waste of resources, quite honestly. And to this day, it is felt that it is the Gremlin that is involved in this.
We stopped cars all over Oakland County for the next couple of days. Very little probable cause, if any. Not one motorist complained. They wanted to help, sure, open the truck.
Well, we had a customer in the other day that had been stopped. Police, and state police stopped him, and local police too.
How did he take it?
In stride. In stride. He was not happy. He was not upset, but he was not happy about it.
Despite all the bad publicity and new car AMC dealers are not happy about it, blue Gremlins with the white stripes are still being sold. In fact, one was sold here today in Royal Oak.
So my girlfriends came over one night and they said they saw a man out there looking in my car. I came out off of work one time and there was a guy looking out at my car, but that was it.
You do get some strange looks.
Yeah.
It's got to affect business, especially on the blue Gremlins. But I would hope that something would happen shortly where this thing would be settled.
They knew that this investigation was at that particular case going on very quickly. They didn't have a whole lot of time. And I told the police, go out there and raise hell, but the public, to a man and to a woman, no problem.
They located...
You can get a blue AMC Gremlin right now for $15,000 in Cadillac, Michigan.
What is that, like a gun?
Huh?
What is that like? Every registered gremlin,
crazy.
something like 8,000 gremlins that were registered, and gremlins are being pulled over left and right. One gremlin had a full police presence and engaged them because it was a guy trying to take his kid to the dentist.
If you saw a blue Gremlin driving in your neighborhood, you called the police.
The King family's always believed the blue Gremlin was a bad lead.
The gremlin was the biggest red herring ever in the case.
No, it was not a blue Gremlin.
The blue Gremlin matter ought to be thrown out.
Well, if law enforcement and the public is looking for a blue Gremlin, then the car that is actually involved, if there is a car involved, but assume for the sake of argument that a car is involved, can drive right past you, right past an officer, right past a citizen that might have some useful information, and it's a 1966 Bonneville, for example. And they say, well, the prosecutor has said this doesn't have any connection with the case. The police have said that there has been no connection to the case. I'm not going to report this. So it absolutely hampers and impedes the investigation.
If the blue Gremlin was not the right vehicle, many, many man-hours of police work and many, many thousands of eyes of people that were trying to observe and get clues, people in the general public trying to help find who the killer was, were driven down the wrong path.
I mean, never mind that, that dude was like, yeah, Fourth Amendment, fuck that.
I think I was very proud of my dad growing up, that he was a cop and then a detective. And my older brother was also a police officer and retired from Berkeley Police Department. He was a lieutenant. And I think it was just part of our family. At one time, my dad, myself, and both brothers were all on the job as police officers in this area. And I'm the last remaining officer in the family.
You're the youngest.
especially knowing my dad's close connections to this investigation at the time, back in the 70s. I would love to be able to do the case justice for my dad and for lots of detectives from Oakland County that I knew through my father, that I see their names all the time on the old reports, and I think, wow, they put so much work into this, and there were so many guys very dedicated to the investigation that I'd love to be able to resolve it for the families foremost, but yeah, for my dad too.
Well, I don't know whether you're talking shifting gears or not, but we still got the manpower on the street, the detectives are on the street.
Well, my dad was assigned this task force when Wayne County got involved. My brother and I, he would set us down at the dining room table and sit there and say, here, look at these tips, and just see if you see anything in there that I need to look at. And we went, okay. We went through them and we didn't see shit. But my dad he would be gone in the morning when I got up to go to school, and he wouldn't be home until 11 o'clock at night.
The tip phones are just going crazy. We've got a lot of people. We've got 7 phones now in the tip room. The tip processing, we're trying to get caught up in there. We're still going. Now, we got a couple of days here that we're switching guys off because the guys that worked last weekend, or from the beginning of this, I had to tell them to take a day off because most of them wanted to keep right on going, but they just got to have a day off.
The FBI showed up because they were experts in multi-jurisdictional investigations.
The FBI.
And they got there and they pretty much said, what are we doing here? You got everything all set. So
they left?
Now that you've had a chance to look at this particular case, similarities are pretty obvious. Can you talk to us now about the similarities between Timmy King and the other cases?
I don't know how much talking we'll do about the individual cases, but
indications, evidence, some factors that are all common to them. Is that what you're saying?
yes, I think that some of them are known to the media. The storing of the body, the cleanliness of the body, and there are obviously several things that we're trying to keep into the task force information only. But we are really feel that we're looking for one man for those 4 particular murders.
There were hundreds of law enforcement on every level, from the FBI down to the local sheriff deputies that were involved here. And it's arguable that this investigation involved so many people and was so big that there were many chiefs that were giving orders, and and the police got muscle bound. They were not working together properly because there were so many of them, and a lot of these detectives and chiefs of police may have had their own agenda. They wanted to be the ones to solve the Oakland County child killer, and it was thought many times that sometimes they would go off on their own, start doing their own investigation so that they could be the ones to break the case.
Let me just say that from what I understand from talking to detectives that worked the original investigation, there were guys that were upset that they had to follow a certain tip and not one that sounded better, and they would maybe bicker a little bit about who was getting the better tips. And that sort of thing, I guess, is common. I mean, all detectives want to do a good job, want to solve the case, and the reason we're in this business, I mean, we're somewhat competitive people. So, I mean, I think that would be normal. I'm not saying that it was overdone or it was crazy, the arguing or fighting or anything amongst the task force, but there's rumors of that kind of stuff happening, and I think that's normal course of business.
It's virtually another police department with one solid goal: this crime. You take a look at that, and that school building has every indication that it's practically an independent police force. It has everything that every police force has. It has all the equipment and all the experts that are necessary to run one one police force, and a very large type police force.
Well, you have something like 50 agencies involved right now.
That's correct.
Would you want to try to draw like one man from each agency, or would they be primarily state police detectives?
No, we'd be writing the grant, and it would be our understanding that this would allow for local law enforcement and the technical aspects from the county and state. In other words, the bulk of these individuals would come from local law enforcement people.
But now you say that...
But by the way, someone would have to subsidize the salaries of these officers, because you have to understand that a long-term investigation, they either have to pay out overtime to replace that body at their station, that detective's abilities to handle their cases. So what we're saying is that we know that it's not going to be an easy matter to resolve this, and we have to have money for a continuing long investigation up to 6 months.
Here, what I'm interested in is, as long as we have the manpower, we've got enough cars and gas in our cars and paper to put in the typewriters, we're going to be in business. And if it comes through, we're going to be in business for a long time.
We would like to continue it until we can resolve this case.
Do you have any idea how much money that would be?
We are presently working with people in the LEAA program to adopt the monies and the grant application that would be necessary.
Do you have no estimate of what you're asking for?
It would be a considerable...
Of all these detectives, all 100 detectives, all these FBI agents, who was holding their feet to the fire saying, find something? Go out there, find something. I'm not saying that they weren't trying, but maybe a handful really were, and the other ones were just like, oh, I'm going to get paid, whether I find the guy or not.
Considerable size of money.
The task force was shut down in December of 1978. And it was due to, it was running on a grant. The grant money was running out. And it's my understanding that chiefs of police that had loaned out their detectives to the task force were starting to get a little hot about wanting their detectives back, because, you know, they have their own caseloads to work on. And those detectives had been involved in the task force for almost 2 years at that point. And so the task force dissolved in December of '78. In 1979, the state police assigned one detective to follow up any future leads on the case, but that was it.
Inside the styrofoam cooler is hair and bone samples of suspect David Norberg. Investigators traveled 1,200 miles to Recluse, Wyoming, to exhume Norberg's body in a long-shot attempt to match his DNA to a hair found on one of the 4 victims.
It might very well not be the right guy, but he's a suspect. We have DNA, and you just have to come out and do this. How can you just not do it? How do you ignore it?
As the workers dig, investigators stand guard. They know that this may be their best and final chance to solve the case of the Oakland County child killer. From this Wyoming graveyard, the evidence goes to a Michigan crime lab for extensive testing.
Well, the success of this operation will be measured by the ability of the appropriate labs to do the testing and hopefully the matching.
Brooks Patterson was the prosecuting attorney at the time of the killings. He says closure would mean everything to the families of the young victims. The DNA results should be back in a few weeks. Kevin Dietz, News 4.
We exhumed the body of a suspect and cut off some of his skin and so forth, and then compared the two, and it didn't match, but that's how far we went.
In 2005, when it was reactivated, when I arrested Lawson. Now, the case wasn't activated because I arrested Lawson, it was just coincidental timing. That I was working that when Gary Gray from the state police reinstituted the task force.
Police are not revealing the name of the mystery man from Ohio, but do say Lawson has led them to Detroit's Cass Corridor.
Mr. Lawson has given us information in the past which took my partners and I down to the Cass Corridor. We've done extensive investigations down there.
Sources tell me Lawson claims the killer may have abducted Mark Stebbins, Kristen Mihalik, Jill Robinson, and Timothy King and hid them in Detroit's Cass Corridor while investigators searched the suburbs. The kids were kept alive for several days before being killed and placed along roads in the suburbs. And listen to this. Lawson claims there may be other victims, Detroit children who were never linked to the case. Why would police believe Lawson a convicted killer? Former Detroit Police Chief Ike McKinnon says Lawson was a paid informant who helped police catch several pedophiles in the mid-'70s.
Oh.
He was a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he had so much knowledge of that underworld that certainly we in law enforcement didn't know about at that time.
Lawson's information was good then. That's why investigators are so encouraged now.
He was arrested in Pennsylvania in August of '89. So I pulled those police reports, and in the reports, Lawson was trying to get the attention of the detectives in Pennsylvania, trying to let them know that he had information to help himself out, obviously, about the Michigan snow killings. And I'm sure that meant nothing to the detectives out there, but it jumped off the page at me. And so then I came down to the prosecutor's office here and met with Prosecutor Worthy and some other prosecutor, Rob Moran, and we understood at that time that we needed to put a rock-solid case together against Lawson because of the implications into the Oakland County child killing case.
So the Cass Corridor was a 10 square mile area in the northwest of Detroit, and the place really became a predator's mecca. And it was populated with, pimps and drug dealers and pedophiles.
Another group of boy molesters was discovered operating in Detroit's Cass Corridor. And that's where some other possible suspects emerged in the ongoing investigation.
Detective Corey Williams found an organized ring of pornographers and child prostitution, and they were organized by lieutenants and generals.
I didn't hear about the Cass Corridor really until probably 2007 when the connection was made. There was always that suspicion, and you can't keep someone for 19 days or 4 days or whatever it is and be a single individual. I just think it would be next to impossible. Someone would know that something is going on unless you're a total recluse in the middle of nowhere and don't know anyone. And I find that hard to believe. So I've often thought that there was a relationship with that.
We arrested Lawson in San Diego in January of 2005, and I started interviewing him. After I had an admission from him, I started talking to him about his involvement and what he meant about the Michigan snow killings. And he told me that during the course of the initial investigation in '76 and '77, he was working as a confidential informant for the former chief of Detroit Police, Ike McKinnon, who was running sex crimes in Detroit at the time and involved in the task force. So they were using Lawson in the neighborhoods to try and identify the Oakland County child killer. And so Lawson started telling me about these things and about his theories and who was involved in the child killing.
He had a lot of information, a lot of really good information. And he talked about Sheldon and he talked about Gerald Richards, and so he knew a lot. He would do a lot of things to make the
he's a
pieces of
profiler.
the puzzle fit because he was, desperate to get out. So, and it was hard because some of the stuff he said was right.
As police escorted Lawson out of the courthouse, we asked him the critical question. Do you know who the Oakland County child killer is?
Yes, I believe I do. Who is it? No.
Mr.
Sorry.
Is it Mr. Lamborghini?
I tell you what, if you gentlemen want to meet with me privately, and what I like to do is cut a little deal.
What's wrong with now?
They're concealing from you the truth about what's going on in this.
Mr. Lawson, if you know who the killer is, why don't you tell these families who it is so they can have some closure, sir?
I'll be glad to.
What?
Lawson is feeding me information. It's prior to trial on the murder case, and he's talking about not about his murder, but about the Oakland County child killings. And I was working with Prosecutor Moran at the time. He said, fine, just let him talk about it, see what he's got to say, let's listen to his theories, and so that's what I did. He said that Lawson was at Bob Moore's apartment one time with Ted Orr and Bob Moore had a photo album on his table, coffee table, with pictures of kids in it. And Lawson claimed that Ted Orr picked up the photo album, opened to a certain page, and showed it to Bob Moore and said, "Does that not look like the King boy?" Almost like sarcastically, sort of.
I would also like to produce to Your Honor a statement by the prosecutor saying that all the information that I gave him pertaining to this would never be used against me in a court of law.
You know, I'm listening to him, and over several conversations, I said, "Are you sure?" I couldn't find a Ted Orr anywhere in Detroit. I said, "Are you sure his name's Ted Orr?" And Lawson finally told me, I think his real last name starts with L-A-M, Ted Lamb something. So I went over to the State Police Post and pulled their Oakland County child killing tip files and looked up anybody with a last name starting with L-A-M, and I found a Theodore Lamborghini. And I pulled that tip, and sure enough, it had been called in by Richard Lawson involving Lamborghini and Moore.
This is as a result of the work that I did for the government. This whole thing here is a sham.
Lawson is deceased. He died in prison after we convicted him of murder. Back in 2006, we convicted him of the murder of Xavier Giller, the cab company owner. He since has passed away.
I wish he wouldn't have died. He had a lot of information, a lot of really good information.
Tonight, new hope that new charges involving an old suspect could finally crack this case.
Hello, Theodore.
So I found him living out in Parma Heights, Ohio, and we worked with Parma Heights detectives Scharschmidt and Mockler. Went out there and found Ted and interviewed him. He admitted that he was involved in pedophilia in Detroit, denied any involvement in a child killing case, and agreed to take a polygraph about it. So in September 2005, we met Ted at the State Police Post, and the lieutenant there polygraphed Lamborghini, and he was the first failure ever in the Oakland County child killing case. And the polygrapher at that time came out, I remember it, said his failure was very conclusive.
Well, the one that sticks out in my mind most of all on this one is Ted Lamborghini. And I recall pretty distinctly talking to him, and primarily because, in my opinion, he definitely has some major involvement in it. It was my opinion that day, and it was my opinion definitely after interviewing him that he has some very good knowledge about this case, and I think he was involved in some way. So he's the one that stands out in my mind, and is still today. I remember a lot of the stuff talking to him because to me he's involved.
When I was working with the state police in 05 through 07, when we were convicting Lawson and Lamborghini, and we were the first to look at pornography and pornography rings in pedophilia as being a motive in this case. So we put quite a bit of time and effort into that. Were these kids filmed, pictures taken, were they passed around? And we don't know at this point, but we did put a lot of time and effort into that.
Corey tells this story of them getting tired of kids in the cast, and they ventured to the suburbs because they felt the suburban kids were considered delicacies.
Oh.
These men were making disclosures to me about being molested by Lamborghini and Lawson. Prosecutor Moran realized because Ted had left the state in 1977, moved to Ohio, the clock stopped ticking as far as being able to charge him with old criminal sexual conducts here in Detroit. So we met with all these victims who we thought were associates of Lamborghini. They were victims. Right. And we obtained 14 to 15 disclosures from these men about how they were molested as young boys in Detroit by these guys. 9, 10, 11-year-old boys at the time in Cass Corridor. Well, we also knew we needed Lamborghini's admissions about these molestations back then.
Is that your present address?
Well, the jail is, but my last residence before jail was that, Your Honor.
The Wayne County prosecutor says Lamborghini, along with Richard Lawson, would lure young victims in the Cass Corridor with drugs, food, and cash, and sexually attack them. A terrifying story for this mother to hear about her son.
It's very embarrassing, and it's very hurtful, and you just don't think you're right.
I get it, these guys are bad, but how do I get back to the one where they kept them for days and fed them and all that shit? I get it, these guys are equally as bad, and maybe they knew something, but did they or did they not? And move on. But that's just me.
Raise a son to do something wrong, because my husband was such a straightforward man.
And he interviewed, a lot of victims of Lawson and Lamborghini who said, yeah, I remember being taken to Oakland County to big, gorgeous houses. And, so they could have been involved in that.
It didn't take too much for them, the suspects, to figure out that they could take the kids a case of pop or some drugs or cash to lure these kids.
We arrested him in Ohio, charged him with 14 or 15 criminal sexual conducts from Detroit in the 70s.
Count 13, count 14, criminal sexual conduct, count 15.
Prior to going to court, Prosecutor Worthy agreed to make him an offer to cooperate in the Oakland County child killing case. And she was willing to go as low as 10 years if he cooperated with us fully and took a polygraph and passed it to solve this case, this old case.
Yes, Mr. Lamborghini is a suspect in the Oakland County child killer case. Mr. Lamborghini is our most promising suspect at this particular time.
Mr. Lamborghini, what do you want to tell the judge in Detroit?
Ted not only didn't cooperate and not only turned down this offer, but he did something very unusual. He pled guilty straight up to all 17 counts, including 3 life felonies, without saying a word.
It's weird.
Which, to all of us, we felt it was sort of telling.
What's so incredible to me is that to this day, we don't know where they were held, The other thing that amazes me about this, and that is that the kids went with their captors willingly. There was no witness of seeing any one of them scream or boggles the mind.
There was a group of people that were for lack of a better word, they were in a ring of pedophiles, and Ted was in that group.
Williams and Gray approached me about suing Lamborghini for money.
What money?
And my family just decided they weren't going to do that.
They staked him out for a long time in Ohio, and Detective Williams enlisted the help of 2 Parma Heights detectives. They were tasked with gaining Ted's trust, and they did. They dropped by often to his place. He worked consistently at Ford, and just led a really small life, had a really small house on a tiny postage stamp lawn, and kept the house immaculate. ate out every day at the exact same restaurant, went to church, forged a really strong relationship with his pastor, so strong that Detective Williams called his pastor once and asked his pastor to preach a sermon on redemption and forgiveness and to try and get Ted to unburden his soul.
The higher ups are pretty well protected. They've got some pretty good dirt on the lower people that keeps them protected. And if the lower people talk, they can lay that out. And I think that was part of it with Lamborghini. I think he was a pedophile and he had done a lot of things. And I think this group, they knew it, and they held that over his head. And, you know, if you come forward with any of this stuff, we're going to lay it out, and you'll be in prison for life. And I mean, this is 1975, and Ted Lamborghini was a free man. He was a free man until 2014 or so. So for 40 years, he went about his business because these people didn't reveal what he'd been doing. Well, at that point, it became, you know, the old victims came forward. Now he's in prison for life, but he had 40 years of freedom.
Yeah.
That he wouldn't have had. So.
George Soros looking motherfucker.
I'm just extremely disappointed that a 4-time convicted pedophile who never spent a day in jail seems to be treated better than the families of these victims.
The Birmingham attorney now revealing he believes the guy in this mugshot, Christopher Bush, a known pedophile who was convicted several times of sexually assaulting children in 1977, is the Oakland County child killer.
Somebody buried those Chris Bush records, you know.
There have been constant suspicions which have lingered all these years about Christopher Bush and about his father being powerful enough to get him out of trouble, out of the most serious kind of trouble that might have led to the discovery that Bush could have been the Oakland County child killer.
So the DNA? It gets me, though, that 4-time convicted child pedophile. 4-time convicted. How come he never saw a day in his life in jail for 40 years? It's weird. Weird. Justice system kind of fucking blows, right? Unless it, what's the word I'm looking for?
This is a WDIV.
Can't remember the word for it. Benefits them. Sad.
Production.
Getting away with murder. That's what several cold-blooded killers thought they had accomplished. Now, decades after the crime, they are suddenly being locked up, thanks in part to a woman who refused to give up. 4 kids were abducted, held captive, then killed days later. Cooper can't talk about the case because of grand jury secrecy laws.
We have an ongoing active investigation.
But wants the family in the child serial killer case and all of Oakland County's unsolved cases to know that her team cares deeply and is determined to see that those responsible are apprehended. Cooper says the cold case unit will continue to be a priority, saying it does not matter when the crime was committed, only that justice is served.
Jessica Cooper is administering her office based on the results she wants and not on the law that she learned.
They are emotionally involved, okay? They want that answer. We would love to give them that answer. It's not something I'm capable of doing. I cannot make a declaration that someone who is deceased has committed this crime And basically I can only give him the facts, and sometimes he doesn't remember all of the facts that we've given him.
I'd like to talk to Brooks Patterson, Thompson, and Cooper under oath with their right hands raised. And if they're correct, I'll acknowledge that I may have made some mistakes. And if it turns out they're incorrect, I would assume that the public might be quite upset.
Oh, we'll see, because he's going to explain it.
Well, Mr. King thinks that there is still information that he has not been given, that the public has not been given, that we should have been given about the child killer investigation. It has taken great effort on his part to get the information that he has been given. He's been given thousands of pages about the investigation from Michigan State Police. He's had to jump through a lot of hoops to get it.
And I completely understand what Barry would like. I get that. As a father, I would want the same thing. And I know Brooks Patterson made a statement to the media a year or two ago. He said that if I was the Oakland County prosecutor right now, I'd bring Mr. King in and open the files up on a table and let him look at everything. And that's because Brooks Patterson has compassion for these families.
He comes up and he was trying to get a hold of his file, and the prosecutor and I don't get along, so she's not going to follow my lead. So I made it very clear, if I were a prosecutor, and I said, look, Jessica, say, swear him in, make him an assistant for 1 day. Now he's on your staff. He would have access, all kinds of ways to relieve her fears that, it's an ongoing investigation. All right? Make him an assistant. Well, without cost, let him serve for a week, and then he can get to the file.
Everyone responds differently. I understand that he's responded, and I understand that he's angry. I'm a grown-up. I can't get angry back. I understand that he, again, is having some problems, and I understand that he is in tremendous pain, and he would love it closed. I would love it closed.
So some cop up there saved this stuff?
And he's a lawyer. He knows exactly how to access the courts, and so I couldn't give him any advice he didn't already know, except I tried to suggest how he might satisfy the expressed concerns. I said to him, ever put you on the staff for a day? And that happens. When people come in, and if there's a case, you can appoint a lawyer to your staff, and he can become an assistant prosecutor for, who knows, for a week because of a particular case. I mean, I've seen that happen in this county, happen in Livingston County. She just wouldn't do it.
The interesting thing about Brooks is when I first met him, he said if he was still prosecutor, he'd appoint me an assistant prosecutor and let me look at all the files. And he never told me that he had found that Christopher Bush was innocent.
Barry King says the man seen in this mugshot abducted and murdered his son Timmy more than 30 years ago.
And I'm pretty certain that if I'd gotten up to the Oakland County files, that portion of the examination would not have been there.
King recently shelled out about $11,000 to obtain all of these never-before-seen police reports and court files. He says this helped solve the mystery of who killed Timmy and 3 other children in Oakland County. Photos of Timmy King fill his father's home. His son's murder and the search for the killer has haunted King and his family for more than 3 decades. The anniversary of Timmy's death and constant speculation over the years about the ID of the killer has obviously been difficult.
It bothered some of my children more than others, and me. We had various reactions to it, but and it had a terrible impact on 2 of them. And one of the children and I guess could absorb it and understand it.
Now armed with new information, King says he believes he's cracked this case wide open himself. The Birmingham attorney now revealing he believes the guy in this mugshot, Christopher Bush, a known pedophile who was convicted several times of sexually assaulting children in 1977, is the Oakland County child killer. Bush lived in Birmingham. He was the son of a wealthy GM exec. He never served time for assaulting victims in the Flint area and he was living in Oakland County when Timmy vanished.
They interviewed one of Bush's nephews. He said, yeah, I remember my Uncle Chris taking me up and showing me where Timmy King, or the last boy, he didn't know Tim's name maybe, was abducted.
Bush and his friend Gregory Green faced the same charges in 1977. Bush walked, Green was locked up for life. Mr. King says because Bush came from a wealthy family, he had access to attorneys who worked to get him off the hook. Because of his criminal past, he was questioned about the Oakland County child killings, but allegedly passed the polygraph test. King says the evidence he obtained shows that he may have failed 2 of those tests. The third was inconclusive. King also says there was a report from a person who called police near the Bush's northern Michigan cottage. A neighbor noticed something of concern. Police never responded.
Timmy was missing from March 16th to March the 22nd. On March the 19th, somebody called the sheriff's department in Montmorency County and said that pedophile Bush is back up here with 2 children.
King has spent the last week digging through these investigative reports, 3,400 pages in all. The goal, to solve the mystery, to bring closure to his family and the families of the other victims. He says he'll keep digging because he feels shut out by some investigators, including Oakland County prosecutor Jessica Cooper.
We shouldn't be adversaries. We should both be trying to find out whether Christopher Bush is involved or not. It shouldn't be a fight.
It's very damaging to the families to have all of these suspects. They want to know all of this information, and then it turns out it's not them. And you can't put all that information in the street in case there is someone who is still living. If someone is still living and they know everything that's gone on, they know everything that the task force has done, they know everything that the police has done. I mean, how silly, how contraindicated, how absolutely devastating it would be if that person is still alive and they know everything that we know.
You know, it's an ongoing investigation, and we are going to keep the Kings and all the other families informed the best we can for right now.
The redacted people are. Yeah.
He paid a lot of money to get this information, which has been, through him, much of it put out into the public domain, and it's very helpful. Is there still crucial investigation information which has been not revealed to him and to the public that should have been? Of course, he thinks so. And he thinks that the current prosecutor, Jessica Cooper, a former judge, is hiding things from him, certainly not cooperating with him. The two are not on speaking terms.
I'm being treated this way in my judgment, and I would welcome the opportunity to talk to officials and have it convince me that I'm wrong. I'm convinced that there was some relationship between Patterson and the Bush family that's unanswered. I don't understand why Jessica Cooper, who's never prepared or tried a case for 40 years, ever got elected prosecutor. But I could understand if I was prosecutor today and Bush was charged, I'd wonder how I would go back to erase the 1977 release.
They arrested Chris Bush in late January of 1977, and they thought, the Flint cops thought he and Green was such a good case. They alerted Oakland County, and Dick Thompson flew up there supposedly in a helicopter in the midst of a snowstorm. And there was a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Christopher Bush was a lead that I developed through information from the Kings back in 2007. And over the course of that investigation, we identified Greg Green. Bush and Green are both pedophiles that are deceased now. And it was a good lead. And it was a good circumstantial case against these guys.
I started a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the state police.
And once Jessica Cooper went public, or not public, but private to me, that Bush wasn't involved, I started a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against her. And then when first one got thrown out, I asked for specific documents, and that one got thrown out too.
When Jessica Cooper took office, she's refused to talk to my family. She even took me to court and falsely accused me of a felony.
What you hear from Barry King isn't a script. He wrote it himself, and he offered to do an endorsement for Mike Bishop, who is running against Oakland County prosecutor Jessica Cooper.
He recently released some information on the case which may jeopardize the investigation.
And Cooper says the attack isn't warranted and it isn't fair.
They have no merit. We've talked to Mr. King. I've talked to Mr. King. I've talked to Mr. King's attorney. Paul, who is my chief assistant, has talked to Mr. King for hours on end.
I would like her to tell me how often she's met with me and when, because if she told you that, it's totally incorrect.
Mr. King is so deeply involved in this. He is his own investigation, after all, of the child killings, that you can understand his frustration if the prosecutor is no longer talking to him. Are they trying to hide things from him? Are they trying to hide a conspiracy to cover up their own malfeasance, their own bungling of the case, or trying to cover something up that we don't know?
We don't have this because we haven't been served. How did you get it?
Larry Wasser is a polygraph expert who told us straight up he can't talk about the lawsuit. When we called the man who filed it, Patrick Coffey, another polygraph expert in California, he told me he can't talk about it either. What they aren't talking about is allegations in one of the most talked about unsolved murder cases ever, the Oakland County child killer case. Coffey insists Wasser told him that this man, Christopher Bush, is the Oakland County child killer, and that he once gave him a lie detector test in an unrelated case. Bush is a convicted sex offender who lived near the victims and committed suicide about the time the abduction stopped. Police investigating the 30-year-old unsolved murders moved Bush to the top of the suspect list, but have found no conclusive evidence. Wasser's attorney is quoted as saying the polygraph expert Coffey made it all up, that his account is bogus and is putting the families through unnecessary suffering. Coffey stands by his story and filed this lawsuit alleging Wasser and his attorney of malicious slander.
In order to determine it's any one person, you'd have to rule the others out. So the key would be just to make sure they follow all the evidence on all the suspects. We don't have any investment in any particular suspect. We just want to make sure the police and the prosecutors have done their due diligence and done their job.
He was arrested with his pal, Greg Green, and Greg Green immediately told them that Chris Bush had killed Mark Stebbins. And it's interesting, once they got the Chris Bush name and you know, Corey starts looking through the files, just this avalanche of evidence came. He was interrogated and asked, he lived in Birmingham? I mean, in Bloomfield Village in a 5-bedroom house. He'd been arrested and convicted 4 times of, you know, sex with minors and got off on each charge.
I didn't think Chris Bush was probably capable of the abductions and the killings themselves. I mean, he was just a slob in and of himself, and I didn't think was probably articulate and crafty enough, if you will, to pull this off. But to be someone's fall guy and be part of the bigger picture, absolutely. And likewise, Greg Green, he had a record a mile long, and here I think he was in Michigan, but yet California was trying to bring him back there for crimes that had been committed.
Gregory Green was a pedophile. He was convicted of sexual assault in California. He served some time in the California system in a mental ward and then was released. He eventually travels and moves to Michigan. He associates with Christopher Bush. They seem to become fast friends pretty quickly. During the time that Timothy King was abducted and later found murdered, Mr. Green was in custody.
Dozens of documents the family has never seen. Detailed facts and information police and prosecutors never knew. Now open for investigation for the first time. Inside the files, a shocking discovery. Look for yourself at the official investigator's notes from a sexual predator investigation in Montmorency County. It says, quote, "The Oakland County Task Force that was involved in the investigation of the kidnapping and homicide of 5 juveniles became involved in this matter. This document is dated January 31st, 1977. It's written before victim Timothy King was even killed."
It's disturbing that chunks of evidence are missing or haven't been looked at by the people who make these decisions.
Chris Bush told them he liked to, he liked to pick up boys, and he liked to keep them for long periods of time. And when they asked him where he would procure his boys, he named in chronological order the sites in which our 3 kids at that time had been picked up from. And nobody put that together until 35 years later.
Only in the aftermath of what happened did I become aware later of Christopher Bush and his knack for getting out of trouble.
He takes a polygraph and he passes the polygraph. And Greg Green passed the polygraph too. And for some reason, he gets deals all over the state, while Greg Green, for the same charge, goes to prison for life. Dick Thompson wrote no deals on his arrest record. No deals. He wrote it twice.
Bush got probation. His co-defendant, Gregory Green, got life in prison for doing the same boy. I'd like an explanation on that, too.
He was the son of a prominent General Motors executive. Mr. Bush was a vice president in General Motors.
Oh.
And was a prominent person in the community. And it was thought, after all of this had happened, that his connections and his power in the community helped get his son off the hook whenever Mr. Bush was called on to bring about whatever he could do with the powers that be.
The investigation all started when Bush was identified, and the police reports indicate that he was quizzed about the Mark Stebbins murder in January of '77. The Oakland County prosecutor went public in February in the Detroit News and the Daily Tribune saying that he'd been cleared in the Stebbins case, and my son was abducted in March. And that's disturbed me more than any other aspect of this case.
It could have been prevented. And
yeah, and his co-defendant gets sentenced to life in prison. I hope it's not checkbook justice. I don't believe in that, but when I talk to police officers about a 4-time convicted pedophile who never spent a day in jail and have them explain to me why one guy gets life in prison and the other guy's out on the street,
they got nothing.
Their eyes roll. They don't believe me.
Brooks Patterson, the Oakland County prosecutor, received a letter from the Genesee County prosecutor at the time indicating that he knows that there is a sex ring going on involving minors. He would like to meet with the area prosecutors to discuss open cases. Christopher Bush was an open case at that time. Between the time of the office writing the criminal sexual assault charges, the preliminary examination where it was bound over, a deal is struck, he is released, and Timothy King disappears.
Money talks, and Daddy was not going to have any sort of affiliation with his kid in this capacity. And If you look at the life of Christopher Busch, he was sent elsewhere in terms of boarding schools overseas, daddy buying him a restaurant and a home up north. This guy did anything he could to farm out his troubled child.
I guess he had a criminal record, and as you say, fit the profile designed by the task force. If I'm not mistaken, his father was a high-placed official with General Motors, so we know he would have had some means. But Christopher Busch, was mentioned, but never was able to develop him into into a suspect.
Because Christopher Busch's dad was a CFO for General Motors or something, that he had clout, and it's like, he didn't have fucking clout.
And Jane Burgess being the attorney that represented the Bushes and got Chris Busch out of basically every single charge that he had. And I mean, it's there in black and white to see. And then you have Brooks Patterson, who signed off on it because he was the prosecuting attorney at the time. So everything fell through the cracks, and I get so hung up on the fact that Brooks Patterson takes such pride in the fact that it was, he was stopping and searching every vehicle in the 70s when kids were abducted, but yet he signs off on all of these pedophiles. And who at what point was not thinking, gosh, there might be a relationship going on here, especially knowing that the boys had been molested during their time that they were in captivity.
Police officers tell me that they thought Christopher Busch was involved. In 2015, I got a phone call from a police officer at my office. We spoke for more than 2 hours, and that officer was convinced that Christopher Busch was involved. Wanted to be sure that I had all the information that was available on Busch, and indicated to me that she was not the only police officer who had arrived at that conclusion.
It's fair to say that there have been constant suspicions which have lingered all these years about Christopher Busch and about his father being powerful enough to get him out of trouble, out of the most serious kind of trouble that might have led to the discovery that Busch could have been the Oakland County child killer. There
was cleared.
were instances that we can look back on now and see that they mishandled possible evidence, didn't question people that they should have questioned, especially in connection with the island. And then in his own suicide, they clearly seem to mishandle the evidence, hard pieces of possible evidence in his room and in his home.
And one of the items that I had FOIA'd from Oakland County was that he had supposedly committed suicide. And then within the same documents that I requested, states that the task force was disbanded within like 3 days of his supposed suicide. So I remember thinking at that point, that's total bullshit. So this person offs himself supposedly, and then all of a sudden the task force had gone to his home where the incident had happened, and then a couple of days later they disbanded.
I don't know that there's a real strong connection between what was going on Fox Island and our kids, other than I know Detective Corey Williams found Chris Busch's name among the list of clients. I've not been able to find it. And the other thing is, it would also explain his suicide if he was caught up in this huge.
In Christopher Busch's room, when the police make entry on a welfare check and they find his body, there's a picture, a hand-drawn picture of someone that is wearing a hooded jacket with a drawn around the head, screaming.
Weird.
And then that now becomes the folklore that is a drawing that he made of Mark Stebbins.
As I recall, they issued a 20 or 20-page report saying that they really weren't able to make a conclusion yet, but that they thought it was more likely a murder. He was found shot in his bedroom in his house. And on the wall of his bedroom was his pencil drawing.
Right.
It's a young boy screaming. He has the same hairdo as Mark Stebbins, and he's wearing the same outfit Mark Stebbins was wearing when he was kidnapped. And while it may not be scientific evidence, I think the odds of that picture being up there without some knowledge of the boy is so remote as to be not discussable. Also, the police report indicates that although he committed suicide, there was no gunpowder on his fingers.
Thought so.
And they found ropes in the closet that might have been used to tie up young boys or girls, although that is all conjecture on the rope part. And we don't know what was missing when nobody had any access to any files for 3 decades. I think if I walked into any house and saw this picture on it, I wouldn't think it was up there for artistic purposes.
When I first saw that, I'm like, yeah, that looks exactly like my brother being sodomized.
What's up, Rockstar? How you doing, brother?
The police people I talked to about 4 convictions and no jail time, their eyes are roll.
We understand why he believes that maybe Christopher Busch is involved. And the questions were direct, and the responses were equally direct. I met with him for 3 hours at his lawyer's office.
Paul Walton wanted to meet with Lisa Milton, my Oakland County attorney, my son Chris and me. And we went out to Lisa's office, and when he came in, he brought their office copy of the pedophile case against Busch in 1977.
Right.
And written on their document of the complaint was "No deal, R. Thompson." And he explained that to me as follows. He said, that's a case with enough severity that they don't want the assistant attorney general, prosecutor, excuse me, trying the cases to make decisions on what the penalty should be. And he's told me that if any prosecutor went to court and settled a case without calling either the chief assistant or the prosecutor, they would fire him.
I outlined with him the investigation surrounding Christopher Busch and the things that were in the file and the things that were strangely absent from the file, as well as the forensic evidence that existed concerning him and the concerns that we would ever have about making a declaration that Christopher Busch did this. There are a lot of interesting aspects to the Christopher Busch case. There's no question about that. But it hasn't been challenged. It becomes a story generated by investigators, and it needs to be challenged. And that's what we did. We realized that there's no defense attorney out there that is going to take this case. So we had to play both prosecutor and defense attorney and challenge every aspect and every component of the investigation. And in the end, we walk away with there's some interesting facts about this case. But for a declaration that he did it, I can't give them that declaration. If he believes it, then great. I'm glad that he has gathered the information and the information that has been presented to him, and he can reach that conclusion. But we can't.
After we talked, after he left, the 3 of us really concluded that the purpose of the meeting was perhaps to badmouth Thompson and Patterson.
But we did not talk at anything else. He did not want to talk about anything else.
I cannot ever make a declaration that someone who is not living is guilty of something. I don't make declarations of guilt. When I was a judge, I could make declarations if the case was tried in front of me. But the only person who can determine that someone is guilty is a judge or a jury upon a complaint and warrant that's brought in a court of law. And I tell you that because as much as there are people who say, just
Not the
tell me who
DNA.
did it, I cannot legally do that.
I can understand why the families are high on them as suspects in the case. I feel we exhausted that lead as of right now, but I would never say that they're not involved. I don't know that. I don't have the evidence to charge them with anything, but I can't say to this day they're not involved, because involvement can mean so many different things. There's so many different levels of culpability in a case where, I don't know, maybe they're connected somehow. So we just keep that in the back of our minds. We exhaust the lead as much as possible, and then we move to the next one. At that time was the one with the new forensic evidence. So, and I've explained to the Kings, and they understand that, you know, we have to follow the forensic evidence is more important than circumstantial evidence.
Local 4 News begins right now with a breaking news alert.
Finally, a break in the case that's had investigators baffled for 36 years.
G'day.
A stunning new development today in the Oakland County child killer investigation.
Those hairs recovered from the boys' bodies have the same mtDNA profile as the hair recovered from the 1966 Pontiac Bonneville.
And now the search is on for this new suspect.
Let me show you this 1966 Bonneville. It was a car like this that was driven by a man named Arch Sloan. Today at a press conference, prosecutor Jessica Cooper said that a hair found on Timothy King's body, a hair found on Mark Stebbins' body, and a hair found in Mr. Sloan's car are all matches. But remember that that hair does not belong to Mr. Sloan. It belongs possibly to a friend or associate of him.
Finding anyone like this who turns out to be the donor of the hair may be the key to solving these 2 murders.
Investigators say this man is a direct link to the suspect, but they still need help finding the killer.
They still don't have enough
Dude, it's
evidence
like
to
30, 40
indicate
years
that this
later,
guy Sloan's
why would
involved,
the
but
hair
they-
still be in the car?
Believe
That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, the guy that owns this car, we found hair from each boy in this car. Wait, really?
that there's a distinct possibility, and we're very pleased that
Unless
the
I
state
misheard
police
them.
and the other investigating officers from Livonia and the Sheriff's Department have stayed active on this case, and we can't ask for any more.
It's my understanding it is, or it was, his vehicle in terms of the hair that they had pulled. And
Hey Laura, how you doing?
you know, where it went after that, I don't recall.
day to
and
be
I
in
know
Canada,
at the
isn't
time
it?
then too that they had pulled a hair off of Chris's blouse. And I think then that was part of the relationship. And then there's the white dog and the animals that then also draw into all of that as far as DNA testing over the years.
his hair was
And
on
then
the
tearing up Morning Bush Glory or whatever the hell the house is in Bloomfield, yes. And the warrant for that.
But I thought Sloan was a good lead, and I would, my family encouraged follow-up on it. But nothing's been turned over to us to indicate that any of that stuff was true, and an amazing original handling of this case bothers my family immensely. 4 kids kidnapped in 4 cities, found in 4 other communities. And when we got involved again after November 30, 2007, most of this evidence was still in the original communities. Nobody had ever assembled this.
Before last night, we'd never even heard of him.
But now this man, James Gunnels, tops the list of people detectives want to talk to in a murder mystery that's haunted this area for more than 3 decades.
Who is this man police believe left a hair on the blouse of victim Christine Mahalik? His name, James Vincent Gunnels, a career criminal, identified by his multiple tattoos, both shoulders, both legs, a girl in rose on his chest, a sun on his right arm, a cowgirl on his left. They tell only part of his story. The rest comes from police reports. The defenders have learned James Gunnels grew up in Flint and was best friends with nephews of Christopher Bush. Christopher Bush eventually molested Gunnels at his northern Michigan cottage. Still, police refuse to talk about Gunnels publicly.
Go on the record in the press indicating the evidence they had and asking people to come forward.
When police looked into Gunnels as a suspect, they crossed the country, flying to a prison in Montana. He intentionally threw a polygraph test there, and when his DNA was a mitochondrial match to the hair on the body of Christine Mahalik, police shuffled some paperwork and had Gunnels transferred to a prison in Michigan, hoping the close proximity would give them more opportunities to get information, a move the families like.
I've been tearing myself up for 35 years because there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about this.
Police questioned Gunnels' cellmate, who told them that Gunnels claimed to be molested at 15 years old by a man that killed multiple people, and that he believed he was told the victims were children, and that Gunnels may have been minimizing what he knew about or his involvement in the Oakland County child killings. Today, Gunnels has served his time and is a free man living in Kalamazoo. The defenders broke the story for the first time ever, a DNA link between someone and the Oakland County child killer case. A man who is still alive, walking the streets. A man the defenders recently caught up with while hidden cameras were rolling.
They took that and they twisted it to their advantage. Now, do I feel I was a fall guy for them? Hell yeah. I feel I still am, to some degree.
This is James Vincent Gunnels, the only known physical link in the Oakland County child killer case. Tonight, you will hear him tell his story for the first time ever.
I've done living in fear of what they have told people.
The defenders broke the story earlier this year. Police tested Gunnels' DNA against a hair found on the shirt of Christine Mahalik, one of 4 known victims abducted, held captive, and eventually killed in 1976 and 1977 by the Oakland County child killer. Gunnels is a mitochondrial DNA match, which means it's his hair or a relative of his on his mother's side. The families of the victims are certain Gunnels knows what happened. They want him ordered to testify before the grand jury under oath to find out what he knows.
Right. Nobody seems to want to believe it, so you know.
Since breaking the story, the defenders have repeatedly asked Gunnels for interviews. Each time, he's refused. So he headed out with hidden cameras rolling to find out more about the man who is the best lead in the 35-year-old murder mystery.
I told my story, Mike, 100%. Didn't add nothing now. Story to the state police.
We find Gunnels out riding his bike after being released a few months back from prison following a series of break-ins, robberies, and car theft. He lives in Kalamazoo now, and on this day, he's out looking for a job. He stops for a smoke break at a local rec center and continues on. When we approach Gunnels, we tell him we're from Local 4 News and are surprised when he opens up and starts talking.
My heart goes out to those families, brother. It really, really, really does. I don't feel that they were served justice through any of this.
Then stunned as he goes on in great detail about the evidence, the cops, and the victims' families.
I'm not guilty. There it is there. But at the same time, I know how the state police twist words to their advantage.
According to police records, Gunnels' story is that he was a teenager at the time of the Oakland County child killings. He was molested by one of several key suspects in the case, a man named Christopher Bush. While the families of the victims and some police speculate that Gunnels may have been used to lure children to the car of the killer and forced to put the victims' bodies on the side of the road after they were killed, Gunnels says it is not the case.
I don't know what they're telling them, man. Right. You know, I don't. All I know is that I'm an innocent victim.
Gunnels says if his hair is on one of the victims, it's because he was in Chris Bush's car on several occasions, and somehow his hair was transferred to the victim's body. He says he never saw Chris Bush attack anyone other than himself.
Right now, on the record, I don't know what that man did to anybody else.
Gunnels has thought about telling his story to the victims' families.
At one point, I was going to sit down with the families and talk to them.
Insisting he feels terrible for them.
I couldn't imagine having that happen and not know for all these years. I really couldn't.
Especially because of the way police have handled the case.
By them to keep people thinking, well, yeah, we're working this case and we're doing everything we possibly can.
He does not trust investigators on the task force.
Over and over and over, man, I say to myself, that's corruption. That's these people doing some things to twist the truth, man.
Saying interrogators tried to trick him.
They're legally allowed to tell me anything. They can lie to me, say anything they want. Whether that was their motive at that time or not, I don't know.
Gunnels tells us he has nothing to hide.
I can't incriminate myself if I'm not guilty.
While insinuating he knows so much more.
I wish I could tell you that. I really do. I mean, seriously, I am right now. I'm getting emotional about thinking about things that I wish I could say, and I wish the public knew.
The theory was that Christopher Busch knew Mr. Gunnels. Mr. Gunnels was being used as a lure to bring Timothy King into the car, and that's how he was abducted. So let's make it clear. This hair that Mr. King is talked about, Christopher Busch is excluded. He is not a contributor. Mr. Gunnels could be, but the statistical odds are about 1 in 150, which when you expand that out to all the population of Michigan at the time, is hundreds of thousands of people. So it has limited forensic importance.
I spoke to the supervisor of the DNA unit at Quantico about our case, and we talked at length about it. And the problem with this, with the genealogy, is it takes a specific type of DNA to get the genealogy results that we would need for our case.
You mean not spit?
There's many different kinds of DNA. And so it's not to say that we can't or that we're not looking into it. We're continuing to look into it. But it's only certain types where you can get the positive results that you need, like they did in the Golden State killings.
Bone marrow.
But we're looking at it.
DNA was not a testing mechanism at the time. It was 3 letters in the alphabet, not even connected.
I was very encouraged that they've got this DNA match. Nothing's ever come of it. And you have to remember that there was no DNA match when these kids were kidnapped.
Every time, whether it was Lamborghini or Norberg or Bush or Sloan, the family, you want to talk about pain, that's what we do. And so you try and be as circumspect as you possibly can, because you're hurting. It hurts. The pain is never going to go away, and when you're talking about the investigation, it becomes even rawer. And so you can see what's happened to some of the individuals who respond to this type of pain differently.
The Oakland County prosecutor, Jessica Cooper, is telling us that this case is active and being worked very aggressively, but they do not comment on open cases. Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy tells us they're keeping the victim families up to speed on what's going on. The Michigan State Police confirm an additional investigator has been recently assigned to the case because of the activity. Task force sources say it now appears Wayne and Oakland County may be running separate independent investigations, and the families say they deserve more cooperation from all of law enforcement. Secrets revealed for the first time. The 4 murders all connected by dog hair. Human hair on victim Christine Mahalik is mitochondrial DNA match to this man, Vincent Gunnels, an ex-convict living in Kalamazoo who was molested by a key suspect in the Oakland County child killer case. Investigators have a theory Gunnels may have lured kids to Christopher Busch. The victims' families were never told, and they are angry about it.
The Michigan Constitution
why did they
says
mention
that crime
dog hair?
victims have a right to confer with the prosecutor.
After digging with the King family, my own investigation, and talking with different law enforcement, it turns out that they have mountains of evidence.
The families feel like the investigators are keeping too much information a secret. They believe the public could help if police would let them. Investigators created a detailed PowerPoint presentation with all the new evidence and now are refusing to share it.
Just feed them a line of crap and they'll just keep taking it, spoon feed it to them, and as long as we give them something, they won't do anything about it. Just keep the families at bay. That's all it boils down to.
What may be more upsetting, it appears Wayne County and Oakland County may be running two separate investigations. The defenders confirming 3 Wayne County investigators were up north Tuesday asking questions in Mount Morency, where Chris Bush molested young children at a cottage. It appears Oakland County and the Michigan State Police had no idea they were tracking new leads in what is supposed to be a team investigation.
So we've been consistently working this case for almost 15 years. We have a personal interest in it, a personal stake, but mainly because of the relationship we developed with the King family. They are wonderful people. We care about them exponentially. We try to keep them informed as best we can when we're investigating a case. We obviously can't keep them informed of every little thing that we're working on. But I have to say that I think Sergeant Williams would say the same thing. That's the primary motivation of bringing some justice to that family.
Well, I remember in 1977, there were complaints that the various jurisdictions didn't work well together. And you'd think they'd learn from their lesson and coordinate their efforts now and make sure this doesn't happen again.
It would be great to have good cooperation all along, especially from people who should be cooperating with you willingly and happily. You know, our motto here, for the most part, has been, we really don't care who gets the credit at the end if we can get to a just solution.
The sharing information is so important, and that's what maybe hindered the investigation early on back in the 70s. Was I think there was some egos involved and lack of sharing, and a little of that happened in 2008, 2009 in this investigation, but it was ironed out, and we've all worked great together. I think the public would be so surprised. I know the families know some of it, the victims' families, but would be so surprised at how much work has been done and how we've advanced this case as a team.
Mr. King seems to think that the authorities are covering something up and that maybe they have some sort of answer that we should know about. I'm not willing to go that far. I hope Mr. King lives long enough, though, to see this case solved.
I don't know that it will ever be solved, and I have to say that I don't think about it like I used to, just simply because I don't want to say you can't dwell on it and you can't think about it, but there's only so much you can do. And when you have someone so powerful as someone in Oakland County working against you and not willing to share information, how far are you going to get?
And I've had individual cases where cops have been killed, that little girl who was molested, and each one of those, I can remember them because it affected me. But this one here is probably the one that gnaws the most because A, it was so large, and B, it's unsolved.
I named my oldest son after my brother, Mark Stebbins II.
And there have been many suspects along the way, and they've always talked about Chris Bush and other people, and they've done, I don't know, it's frustrating that they can't figure out who did this, but there's 1 million people in the world, 1 billion people in the world, and how do you narrow down the one?
My family's not very confident about it, but I feel even worse not knowing the answer is the fact that the people who looked into it after 40 years won't talk about it.
They deserve that. Yeah, I hope it's solved for his sake. And somebody can go and tell him. And I hope that person is Corey Williams.
Denise Powell and Becky MacArthur from the State Police, Sean Callahan and Brooke Glennon from the FBI, our whole team of investigators from our office, Kim Worthy and Rob Moran, have done so much work, and it's been blood, sweat, and tears to advance this case. We're all disappointed we haven't solved it yet, but I'm telling you right now, this case can be solved, and I believe it will be. And our team of investigators are not gonna give up. We're gonna work hard the next 11 months, or as long as I have left on this job, to see if we can bring this to closure. And if not, we will assist the new detectives so they can hit the ground running.
Well, unfortunately, as of right now, they still haven't solved the case, and looks like they honestly never will. That's just the honest truth, and gotta stop sugarcoating shit. So anyway, that was one specific case that seemed like it dragged from a elementary school PE teacher, a magician, a rich guy, to a murderer. Are they all connected? Possibly. And the nice little pedophile ring they have up there, or had up there, or possibly still have up there. Damn, man. Sucks that it's a cold case that's never going to get solved. But, as for now, with one case behind us, I was looking up another one. That's why I was so confused. I had to figure out which one I was watching this morning. Because I was actually looking into another one yesterday for quite a bit. And let's just say that rabbit hole for this is nothing compared to what I'm going to show you next. Not today. Probably not tomorrow either. I got to continue watching a few more and check out another interview. Yeah, but anyway, I'm not telling you how to think because, well, that's retarded. And that's just not how I do it. It's telling you to think. And remember, you know what? Have a good day.